everybody. I am Melissa Forziat. I'm a keynote speaker and the host of this Halt and Catch Fire rewatch podcast. Now, this is a special week, so I'm going to do a bit of a special intro here. Look, this is the start of the Olympic Games. If you're watching this in real time, the Olympic Games started this weekend on Friday with the opening ceremony. I did a little reaction video about the opening ceremony because I used to work those events and I have a lot of thoughts about what they pulled off. And if you are coming to this video, because this is the first video that you're seeing after that one landed, I wanted to give you a quick orientation on what type of content I do and what to expect coming up this week. So I'm going to give you some teasers, not all of them, for what's ahead this week. Now, as a keynote speaker, my topic is something I call Take the Doughnut, which for me is another way to say carpe diem. It's about, not leaving anything on the table, going after what you want in life. So all of my content is related to going after opportunity, lessons learned by doing that, finding little things to inspire us all in the process, as well as sometimes challenging myself to take a donut that I really want to take. So everything that you're going to see coming up this week has something to do with one of those areas of going after opportunity. Now, the video that you're on right now on Mondays, I drop a Halt and Catch Fire rewatch podcast episode recap because this year a huge donut that I wanted to take was rewatch the best show that's ever been made. My favorite show on television that's ever happened. The most perfect 40 episodes of television that was ever produced. From 2014 to 2017, Halt and Catch Fire brought us a host of main characters who in the 80s and 90s, the 1980s and 1990s, they were achieving some of the major technological developments related to computers that we all know, use, and love today. The first season started with them trying to work on personal computers and really be at the forefront, the cutting edge of that. But the seasons go on and we move through different types of technology that we all know and love and use today. And it's a wonderfully character-driven, relationship-driven show. The writing's amazing. The acting is incredible. Nobody ever seems to have heard of this show, but now you have. So there you have it. So on Mondays, we do an episode recap. We're currently in season 3. So if you're brand new to this show, you might want to go to some of my prior episode recaps to get to know this show and see if it's something that you're into. On Tuesdays, I find a picture from a donut shop that inspires me and I do a little donut wisdom. I say, what did I learn from that donut photo today? And so that's always a fun short little video that I get to just put some inspiring thoughts out there, at least thoughts that inspire me, hopefully you as well. On Wednesdays, I do a Take the Doughnut interview. Every single week, I interview somebody, all different kinds of people, about what it takes and what it's like to go after opportunity in life. And I will spoil that this week, I have an amazing interview coming up with Julie Alley, who was a Survivor 45 castaway. She was so high energy, so amazing to watch on the show. She's lived a lot of life and she had a lot to share with us. So I'm looking forward to that. On Thursday, I always drop an interview with a cast or crew member from the show Halt and Catch Fire, so you can look forward to that. I'm not going to spoil who that one's with, but I'm quite excited to put that one out there. And on Friday this week, I'm going to do a little reaction video about my Julie Alley interview as well. And at the start of every month, I tend to do a quick little message from Melissa, something that, something that I've encountered in my world that gave me some thoughts, gave me some food for thought, if you will, maybe inspired me, maybe got me thinking. And so I'm looking forward to dropping that as well this week. A lot of content coming your way. I hope that the idea of feeling inspired inspires you. Maybe you want to check out this podcast, which is the Halt and Catch Fire rewatch podcast within the rest of the content. So thank you to all of those who are really familiar with my content. Thanks for bearing with me. Who knows, maybe we can get some more fans of the show in the process. But today, look, we're going to talk about season 3, episode 8 of Halt and Catch Fire in this recap. This is a spoiler-free recap up until season 3, episode 8. However, I am here to tell you there are major spoilers in season 3, episode 8. So again, if you're brand new to the show, consider going back and watching from the beginning of this series. And now I'm diving in. Okay. This is the Halt and Catch Fire rewatch podcast. We're going to talk about You Are Not Safe for season 3, episode 8. The last interview, for those who haven't had a chance to check it out yet, the interview that I dropped last week was with Jeff Freilich, who was a producer and a director on this show for 3 episodes. He was the producer who was based in Atlanta the whole time. And he has so many different unique insights into the show. He was very much a confidant to a lot of the people who worked on the show. That was part of his role. He had a lot to do behind the scenes, in all of the different capacities. So his interview gives so much information, and it's just not the perspective that anybody else could have. A lot of people, if you've been listening to the interviews, a lot of people have been dropping his name as a person that they really valued working with. So I've been excited to talk with him, and you're going to get a chance to hear a nice long supersized interview with Jeff if you go back to last week's interview. You Are Not Safe. Okay, that is the one we're covering today. It originally aired October 4th, 2016. This was directed by Reed Morano, who directed 1 episode, but dang, Reed, it was mind-blowing. This was written by Lisa Albert and Allison Tatlock. The description is, Ryan's rash decision has forced him into hiding. With the NSFNet project now on indefinite hold, Joe and Gordon must figure out how to proceed. Donna and Diane prepare to move forward with Mutiny's IPO despite Cameron's departure. Look, last episode was intense. But you knew there was going to have to be fallout on more than one storyline, even as powerful as those scenes were from the last episode. You knew there was more coming. There had to be. And was there ever? I mean, this is I guess, hey, R.I.P. Ryan Ray. I just want to say, before I get into the scene by scene breakdown, I've always felt, even on previous watches, I always felt very compelled by Ryan. He is a character that caught my eye instantly from the first watch that I saw him in. I found compelling is the word that I want to use, but in a very dark way. I felt uncomfortable for him when he was on screen. I felt there was something just dark and ominous for me about Ryan. And I think that had a lot to do with the fact that he's not really a people person. And you see that a lot in his early episodes. And now we know that this character comes to a tragic end. And I have to say that on this deep dive, rewatching season 3, I have gone through an emotional ride that I never went through when I was not doing deep dives like this on previous watches. There are scenes with Ryan that were so intense that I found them funny. There were scenes with Ryan that were so intense that I found them heartwarming. I feel more, as I don't know, something about this rewatch has made me feel extremely protective of Ryan, and I kind of love Ryan, and I just am sort of devastated that we are here, that this has landed where it is, but it feels like it was inevitable. I'm so amazed by how many layers there were for me in this rewatch. Maybe I was watching so closely that I saw more than there should have been in there. And so in some cases, I'm looking to your comments in the feedback section to sort of ground me and root me. But I'm finding that this was a very layered character. And I want to say to Manish Dayal, thank you for playing Ryan Ray and bringing so many layers that I didn't even realize were there. And I think a lot of it has to do with the writing as well. I feel there's a huge connection between Joe and Ryan almost instantly. And the payoff of that is clear throughout this whole season. And now it makes me really wonder where we're going to go with Joe, right? So let's get into the scene by scene breakdown of it all. We're going to start with like a very chilling Lee Pace staring straight down the barrel of the camera. Joe looks haggard. He looks forlorn. We start with an extreme close-up on his face, and then the camera pulls back a bit. We're going to get that this is December 19th, 1986. Timing-wise, I don't do a great job usually of talking about the timeline here, but at the end, I went back to the end of last episode, and I was trying to see, there was a paper that Joe was reading that was about him, being ousted from the company. And I was trying to see if I could find a date on there. And it's so small, it's very blurry. I think it said August something. I'm gonna guess that last episode, when things went down with Joe's company, with McMillan Utility, that was around August. Okay, so now they're giving us really important timelines here in this episode. This first scene, we're going to see Joe it's December 19th. And we're going to hear a very far away sounding man's voice. This is Mr. McMillan. Now we're going to switch the camera angle we're going to look at the back of Joe's head. We're going to see this particular angle used a lot in this episode for different characters, including, again, we're going to see it again for Joe. This was a really very specific point of view choice, I think, that Reed Morano was using. So we're going to see this type of shot for the first time here in this episode now, right away. We're going to see the back of Joe's head in focus. There are a couple men, like basically the bottom halves of men who are standing in front of him as he sits. We are going to see this done a lot too with the camera choices. People who are fully in frame sitting and people who are basically half down where you can't see their face or recognize them. Okay, so those two men in suits, those, we're going to find out later, those are police, the FBI agents, authorities who have come to Joe's apartment. They're still sounding very far away. They're saying, Mr. McMillan, we need to ask you a few questions. And then we're going to go whoosh. And that sound takes us to the back of Ryan's head, because we're in his point of view now. And he is watching his house being raided. This is 4 months earlier, we find out. So where does that put us? Does that put us in October? September? Does that put us in September? It would make sense that the article Joe was reading in the previous episode was August. So this might be late August, early September. Yeah, I guess this would be like early to mid-September. So I'm just sitting here counting, which is really fascinating podcasting. So, okay, we're going to hear some chatter in the room that Ryan's in. Again, his house is being raided. He did a bad thing. An FBI agent approaches Ryan. Do you have any additional computers? Again, we're seeing not this officer's face. We're seeing Ryan's face, but we don't see the officer's face. He says, do you have any additional computers? We're going to get a close-up on Ryan. He's looking, I don't know, dazed. He's looking bored, maybe more bored than dazed. He's sort of indignant in his way. Like, I have so many better things to do than be here. That's the attitude that I'm getting from Ryan. He says, you mean, do I own another computer? No. Do I have access to other computers? Sure. So do you. You can go to your library. You can go to your friend's house. The FBI agent is like, stop it with the pipe down, kid. He says, write down all the locations of computers you have access to. We see this person, this faceless person. We see them from like here down. He hands Ryan a notebook. Just write him down. If you're going to say something like that, you can spend all day writing down the location of every library in the state. Okay, so we are going to see another guy from the neck down plugging a device into Ryan's computer. Ryan's like, have at it. There's nothing there. He's so cocky. He's so sure of himself. Now we're going to see the guy's face. And I thought this was an interesting choice. This feels extremely intentional to me. Up until now, we have had absolutely no way to ID from, here up any of these authorities that our characters are dealing with until this moment. So to me, what that's saying is something about this guy. Maybe Ryan should pay attention to this guy. Maybe this guy is worthy of Ryan's notice and attention and time. Maybe this particular guy does have something worth saying. So it's sort of like, okay, Ryan can listen to this guy. So we're going to see this guy's face. And he says, yeah, that's what I said when they came for me too. Okay, so he's Ryan from some number of months ago. He also did something bad. He got caught, and he, I guess, struck a deal that he would be the guy who helps them tech-wise to catch the next person. He's going to plug a device into a phone jack in the wall. Ryan's watching him. Why is he plugging a device into a phone jack? Ryan wasn't expecting this. He's like, what the hell is that? This tech guy says, oh, kid, you've never seen a packet sniffer? Meet your worst enemy. He sits down to start typing. He's a proficient typer. He knows what he's doing. We're going to hear some beeping. Ryan starts to flinch. This worries him a little bit. The guy who's been unflappably confident in that he committed this crime in a way that can't be detected, suddenly he's wondering if he can, in fact, be detected. Okay, so now we're going to cut to some time in the future, not far in the future. The FBI agents are gone. They're not raiding his house anymore. Ryan is packing very quickly, and his roommate, Cy, comes up. Cy says, where are you going? He's like, I'm gonna go grab a bite to eat is what I'm doing. Cy's like, yeah, they told you not to leave. Clearly he's packing. You don't just pack to get a bite to eat. Ryan says, what was that thing they were shoving into the phone jack? And Cy's like, you didn't do anything, right? Ryan's walking towards the door. Cy says, what should I tell them if they come back? Ryan turns back firmly, and he says firmly, just don't say anything. He goes out the door and into the light. It's, daylight, but it's it's a very backlit door, and Ryan walks into the light. Harbinger of things to come there, huh? All right, we're going to see a couple of guys walk out of Joe's apartment and down the hallway, passing Gordon. So we're still on that timeline from 4 months ago. And they're going to be agents. We're going to hear Joe say goodbye to them. Gordon is going to be coming around the corner in the hallway of Joe's apartment complex. And we hear Gordon whistling up until he sees these two guys who are coming out of Joe's place. And he kind of slows down. Joe's still holding open the door. He sees Gordon. Gordon's like, what was that? Joe's like, the FBI. Gordon has some catching up to do here. Gordon says, God damn it, Joe. Joe walks into the apartment very quickly. They both walk in. Joe's walking past Gordon. He walks all the way to the corner of the room, sort of surrounded by the windows, where I feel like this episode is really trying to get us to think about those windows a lot. Those windows are going to become very important later. Joe says they're looking for Ryan. He did a stupid thing. He released the source code for Macmillan Utilities antivirus software online. Gordon says, you've got to be kidding. Joe says, all of it. It's a violation of the CFAA. Okay, had I just waited until this episode, I would have been able to answer all the questions that I was asking you last week. So what crime did Ryan commit? It's a violation of the CFAA. I did some digging on this. I have some research to present to you before we resume the scene. So let's pause on the scene here because I want to make sure we have the context for what Ryan did and why I think they're coming down on him for it. So the CFAA is the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. This was enacted in 1986. And I think that's why this matters so much right now. It's an amendment to the first federal computer fraud law to address hacking. Another quick description of it is the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act of 1986 is a US cybersecurity bill that was enacted in 1986 as an amendment to existing computer fraud law, which had been included in the Comprehensive Crime Control Act of 1984. One more thing, it's to address access without authorization or access exceeding authorized access. So here's the thing. When I looked this up online, there was like a rubric for whether, in any particular case, so should the Department of Justice pursue prosecution for the CFAA? And there were a number of factors involved. I'm actually going to read those for you here. First, the sensitivity of the affected computer system or the information transmitted by or stored on it, and the likelihood and extent of harm associated with damage or unauthorized access to the computer system or related disclosure and use of information. So I don't necessarily, most of these bullet points, I'm running really hard up against the fact that Gordon now runs Macmillan Utility or Citadel Utility or whatever it is, right? He negotiated that deal. So if Gordon said, this isn't a big deal, I'm not pressing charges on this, this first bullet point is really hard for them to prosecute. Now let's look at the second one. The degree to which damage or access to the computer system or the information transmitted by or stored on it raises concerns pertaining to national security, critical infrastructure, public health and safety, market integrity, international relations, or other considerations having a broader significant impact on national or economic interests. So here's the thing, Macmillan Utility, Citadel Utility now, or whatever Gordon's calling it, is an antivirus software company. But what Ryan released was the source code for the program itself, not people's personal information, to my knowledge. So I don't necessarily think that it satisfies this particular one either. A third one, the extent to which the activity was in furtherance of a larger criminal endeavor or posed a risk of bodily harm or threat to national security. I don't think it did that. Another bullet point, the impact of the crime and prosecution on the victim or other third parties. If Gordon says it's not an issue, it wouldn't be an issue, right? The next one, the deterrent value of an investigation or prosecution, including whether the need for deterrence is increased because the activity involves a new or expanding area of criminal activity, a recidivist defendant, use of novel or sophisticated technique, or abuse of a position of trust, and so forth. I think that's why they're coming down so hard on Ryan. I think he is being made an example of. Look, I'll read the other two real quick. The nature of the impact that the criminal conduct has on a particular district or community. I don't think it's that. Whether any other jurisdiction is likely to prosecute the criminal conduct effectively if the matter is declined for federal prosecution. Maybe that's a factor. And then one more, the attorney for the government should decline prosecution if available evidence shows the defendant's conduct consisted of and the defendant intended good faith security research. No, he definitely did not. So I think when I look at this list and I think about the fact that the CFAA was new as of 1986, and this is a scene from 1986, this is a really high profile case. Ryan Ray would not have been high profile without Joe Macmillan being involved, but Joe Macmillan was on the cover of Forbes magazine. He's a well-known business person. This would be high profile because Ryan Ray is connected with this. Ryan Ray is connected with Joe. So if the FBI can make an example of Ryan in the year that this comes out, that seems to me to be like a big dragon to slay for them as a deterrent for future criminals doing activity like this. I believe that's why Ryan's not getting wiggle room here. So this is how I'm interpreting all of this. It's very, very specific to the time that this would be something that Gordon can't help resolve, I think. Okay. Thank you for giving me a little latitude there because I didn't really understand why Gordon couldn't help with this. And so this does put a lot of context to it for me, at least, and hopefully it does for you as well. So Joe, let's go back. Joe says, okay, it's all in violation of the CFAA. Gordon says, and they think you did it. Joe says, I know what you're going to say. Gordon says, it's what everybody's going to say, Joe. Joe's like, please just listen. Gordon's like, stop. Look me in the eyes. Tell me you had nothing to do with this leak. Joe walks closer to him. He says, I had nothing to do with it. Gordon holds his gaze for a moment and sees whatever he needs to see in Joe's eyes. And he says, all right, then I'm all in. And we're watching Joe's face as Gordon says that. Gordon believes him. At least there's that, right? Joe is worried about Ryan, but Gordon believes him, and at least there is that. Gordon says, all right, we'll figure this out together. Now we're going to get a close-up of Donna's mouth. We're going to see this particular camera choice a couple times in this episode as well. We're going to see it the first time here with Donna. She's got her lipstick on. We're watching her talk, talk, talk. She's practicing. And we're going to see as the camera like kind of gives us more of the view, we're going to see she's reading and practicing what she's going to say. So she's saying, while it's true that the pace of Mutiny's growth has slowed somewhat, multi-platform expansion is not the only solution. So first of all, we're going to get a timestamp at the beginning of this scene that it's now October 31st, 1986. All right, so we've gone ahead in time by what, probably about a month and a half. It's Halloween. It's very important that we're placing that here. And everything's hitting the fan right now with the IPO. This is the timeline for it. And Donna is the spokesperson for Mutiny. So she's practicing what she's going to say. While it's true that the pace of Mutiny's growth has slowed somewhat, multi-platform expansion is not the only solution. We now see her in profile as she's reading. She's very poised in this moment. She says, rather, Mutiny is employing a number of strategies which, taken together, promise a second quarter earnings uptick. We hear Diane say, stop. And now we're going to see Diane sitting there listening. They're actually in a hotel room. So just in case you thought that Donna was actually delivering this, for something serious, she's still in practice mode. Diane's like, stop, you can't say that. It's not in the prospectus. She says, well, I have to say something. They can see that the user numbers are plateauing. So we've had enough time to see that some of Cameron's predictions are coming true. Their growth is slowing. Boz is also in the hotel room. He's laying down on the bed. He's listening. Diane says the company's laudable record of growth is fully documented in the prospectus. This is the type of thing that Donna is meant to be saying. Donna says, that sounds like I'm hiding something. Diane says, you can't hype the stock. Donna says, well, what's the point of doing this roadshow if all I can say is read the prospectus? Boz is a little frustrated. He says, so they read the prospectus. Donna says, well, there are things that I want to clarify. The prospectus should be a living document. Boz is like, well, it's not. Diane says, sorry, SEC rules. Look, you're doing great. The whole point of coming in to these smaller firms first is so you can work out the kinks before we take it to the big guns in Boston and New York. Thank you, Diane, for the exposition. That helps. Donna says, I thought it went pretty well last night, don't you? Boz is going to sit up. He says, no, I think they were underwhelmed. Donna kind of can't believe he said that out loud. He says, hey, I read the room as I see it. And Diane is giving Boz the eye. I love, not only are we seeing how much tension there is between Boz and Donna in this room. I mean, look, at the end of the last episode, Donna and Cameron forced the board to make a decision between them. Boz, under great duress, voted in favor of Donna. But does he feel good about that? No. Is there a reckoning? No. Does Donna have his unwavering loyalty? No. How does Boz feel about Cam? I mean, I think he's crushed that he had to make that choice. Is he angry with her? I don't know. I think everybody's keeping their distance with Cam right now. And that had come right on the back of the most beautiful sort of reconciliation between Boz and Cam right before the vote. And now, boy, it's weird again, isn't it? And Boz not feeling great about Donna because of that. But one of the things that I love about this scene is that Diane's here too. And she's like, this thing is barely on the rails between Boz and Donna in this scene. And Diane's looks that she's giving, the way she's sort of monitoring this situation, she's on high alert. And she's not getting in the middle because, dear Lord, she doesn't want to do that. But I think it's helpful to us to see how attentive Diane is to this tension. She's a little bit us in this room. So Diane is giving Boz the eyes. He's giving this, oh, well, I'm just saying all of this because I call it like I see it. She's given him an eye. Diane says to Donna, you did fine. Fortunately, there isn't much investment capital for tech in Denver. It's like, no matter what happened in Denver, that was a practice city. Donna can't believe she's saying that. And now she's worried. Diane says, look, everybody hates this process and everybody gets through it. So come on, tell me about Mutiny's founder, Cameron Howe. Donna sort of stands back up. She gets her posture back and she looks at her notes again. Diane says, I understand she's no longer with the company. Donna says, Cameron is one of the most talented coders in Silicon Valley. She gave her heart and soul to Mutiny, and her spirit is still very much, Boz has had enough. He interrupts. He's putting on his shoes. He's doing the Mr. Rogers of it all. He says, oh, please. Diane looks at him like, oh my God, oh my God. Boz says, it sounds like you're eulogizing the family dog. Donna says, that's what we agreed I'd say. Boz says, it doesn't pass the smell test. Diane purses her lips, looking at him like, like, can we keep the lid on this thing? Boz says, it sounds, so Donna says, do you have a better suggestion? Boz says, something with a faint hint of the truth to it, maybe? He's still putting on his shoes. He's ready to go. He doesn't want any more of this. Donna pushes back. She's getting a little heated. She says, oh, so I should say she's a temperamental narcissist with self-destructive tendencies who doesn't work well with others. Doesn't take much to light Donna up right now. She knows Boz is not happy with Donna. Donna, this is all sort of in defense for herself, but she's very happy to take the lowest possible blows with Cameron without Cameron being able to defend herself in this room. Boz gets a little heated here too. He's like, well, at least it sounds like you mean it when you say that. Diane puts her hand to her forehead like, how do I make the sun happen? Donna says, I'm sorry that there's no pretty way to talk about this, but just a reminder, you voted for it too. Boz says, yes, I did. Under duress, as I recall. He stands and grabs his jacket. Diane's like biting her hand in the corner. Donna says, nobody wanted it. It's just what happened. That doesn't feel true. I think I'm gone on record here saying I think there was a middle ground that they could have found somewhere along the way. Nobody wanted that. Boz says, and yet here we are. Look, I'm just trying to help out here. He's not really. He's pissed. We're going to get another really interesting shot here from the camera. It's going to be behind Donna this time, but it's not from her point of view. It's sort of like from up towards the ceiling. It's sort of pointed down at them, but it kind of doesn't care enough. The camera doesn't really want to be in this room either. It's got Donna in frame. It's got Boz in frame. It's got Diane in frame, but it's mostly looking at the open space up here. The camera is like, can I go too, Boz? Can I come with you? So, all right. Boz is getting ready to go. And he says, unless you just want me to go get coffee, like, I'll do that instead of be here to help. He's going to open the door, close it, leave. Donna just sighs. I felt like I really needed to see where Boz is at with all of this. I also want to know where Gordon is with all of this. We know where Donna stands. We know we can see what Diane's position in this has been, but Boz and Gordon had a vested interest. They don't want to. They did not want to hurt Cam, but they hurt Cam. But they made the best choice either for. I mean, in Gordon's case, I think he felt that he had to make the choice that he made. He raised his hand for his marriage, but he also is pretty on the fence with Donna, I think. And you can see that throughout this episode. And with Boz, why exactly did he vote the way that he did? Did he think it was empirically the right thing for the business to go for the IPO, without waiting? Did he do it to side with Diane? Did he do it I see basically those two reasons, right? So I guess, is it a combination of the two? But he's got some buyer's remorse. I don't know. I don't know that he's regretting his vote. He voted the way he voted for whatever reason he voted, but he is pissed that he had to vote at all. All right. We're going to see how Cam's doing. Not great. She is face down in bed. Her head's not even on the pillow. And another interesting choice here, we're going to see Cam. So the camera, she's laying down in bed, but the camera's tilt sideways. So she seems to be upright in about this much of the frame. And I also like the fact that she's on a white pillow, white sheets. She's got her blonde hair. She's got a white shirt on. It's like, I don't know. Are we trying to, are they trying to tell us who was on the righteous side of this argument? In a results-oriented way, it seems like Cameron was correct. By the end of this episode, it's like, she might have been onto something. Maybe we should have waited for this. And so I love that this first shot we get of her, it's just white. She's so pure. She's so angelic. She's not really, but this seems to be the right side of the argument according to the color choice. Okay, so we're getting this view of her. We're going to see a hand touch her back. Once again, we're getting most of a scene where somebody else is interacting with the main person being featured, and we're not seeing their face. So Tom is in the room. We see his hand. She says, "Hey, are you leaving already?" He says, "Yeah, I figured I'd wait till my second week till I start showing up late." Cam's not looking at him. Her eyes are closed. We're not looking at him either because we can't see him. So he touches her back. He's still not on the frame. He says, "Yeah, can you run to the store, maybe get some candy for the trick-or-treaters?" He's just trying to give her a thing to do. He wants her to be like among the living. Cam doesn't really like the idea. She turns her face away. Lifts her body up, turns her face to the other side. So she's not even looking at the camera anymore. She says, Tom says, "Cam, they're kids. They want candy. And you should try to get out a little bit." And he takes the pillow out. It wasn't under her head. Her head was sort of like it was here. And so he takes the pillow out. He sort of tosses it to the other side of the bed. We're going to see Cam's face. She looks pretty haggard too, like Joe did. Cam says, "Can you do it?" Tom says, "No," because the point of this exercise was to get her out of the house. We're going to see his face only briefly. He comes in to kiss her on the side of her face. She's like, "Oh," he says, "I love you." She says, "I love you." She sniffles a little bit. She's like, she's waking up, sort of. We hear the door open and close. He's left the house. She opens her eyes. We're going to hear a ringing sound, kind of like that tinnitus sound. We've heard it before with Gordon. We have heard it before with other characters as well. She is going to roll to her back and look up at the ceiling. I mean, there's just this, I feel like it's this like ever-present hum. Like we know she has panic attacks. We know she deals with anxiety. And I think it's just this light tinny sound. And it's meant, I think, to tell us it's just an anxious time. It doesn't go away for her right now. She's going to sigh. Then we're going to see her walking into the living room. We're not hearing that ringing sound still. She grabs a box of Life cereal. It's been a long time since I've had Life cereal. She turns on the TV and there's an episode of the $25,000 Pyramid. We're going to see Dick Clark hosting it. So he's saying the winner circle's over here. That's where you win the most money, but you can win some bonus money at your chairs over there, 10 and 25,000. So he's given the rules. Cam is going to see something that gets her attention. She goes to like sort of sit down on the couch, but she sees something that gets her attention. So we get this really interesting side shot of Cam leaning in closer to the TV, and then the camera is going to show us the TV. We're going to hear a buzzing sound. So now it's not a ringing sound, but it's a buzzing sound. So it's like it's a physical manifestation now of the anxiety. But it's also a wasp, an actual wasp inside the house. And the wasp is flying and it goes and it lands on the TV, and she gets her face up close to the TV and the wasp. I'm here to tell you, if there's a wasp in this room, I'm not doing any of the things Cam's doing. I am not still. I'm not getting my face up close to it. She has a very interesting reaction to wasps, I find. So we're going to still hear Dick Clark. He's announcing what the subjects are in the first game. I don't know if there's anything to analyze here, but the subjects are water, water everywhere, round and round, remember when, keep them sealed, and we'll be right back. I don't know. I think a lot of that seems pertinent to her situation in this moment. Dick Clark says, it sounds like commercial messages. Don't know what it is, but that's sure what it sounds like. And his voice is getting lower and lower as we see Cam dealing with this wasp, or sort of feeling drawn to the wasp, drawn to the anxiety. So she is getting up. The wasp starts to fly again. She starts to wave it towards, sort of swat it towards the door. She opens the door and out the wasp goes. Once again, of the times I've had a fly or a bee or something in my apartment, getting it out of my apartment was not as smooth sailing as what she just did. She was like, and it just went right out the door. You ever notice that when you try to open like a window or a door, whatever is flying in your place chooses every other possible place to exit except the thing that you just opened? Not the case for Cam. But here's the thing, Cam gets out onto the front porch. The wasp is now happily flying outside of her house, except so are a lot of other wasps. And we look and the camera sort of goes around a corner and we're going to see a wasp nest up in the corner of the ceiling. I can't help but think that Tom walked out past this not long ago and was like, I'm going to pretend I didn't see this. I'm going to pretend I didn't see this. And he just went to work. He surely walked out past this swarm of wasps. Anyway, Cam just is standing there looking at the wasp nest and she's eating Life cereal. Looking at anxiety and eating Life. There's got to be something in there. Maybe I'm making too much of it, but I don't think so. All right, now we're going to see, what's the latest and greatest with Ryan. We are going to watch somebody's hand, a faceless person's hand, turn on a tape recorder. We're going to hear Ryan's voice. And this, I believe, is a voicemail that he would have left for, it turns out the person with the hand is Mitch, the guy from the NSFNet project. So we hear Ryan's voice. It's Ryan Ray. The deal between Joe and Gordon, it's bullshit. Joe is in this room listening. Gordon is in this room listening. Mitch is sharing this recording with them for the first time. Okay, the deal between Joe and Gordon, it's bullshit. I was there from the beginning. The network wouldn't exist without me. And I'm better than Gordon Clark by a magnitude of 20. Ryan is fired up. Joe is listening. He's shaking his head. He looks at Gordon. Gordon wants to roll over for Cisco on TCP/IP upgrades. It's so short-sighted, he's a joke. That's who you're in business with. This is what Ryan is telling Mitch. Ryan is unhinged. He's slamming Gordon. He's making a case with the guy from, I mean, talk to Joe, not Mitch from the NSF net. I mean, he's trying to throw shade on Joe and Gordon, but oof. Mitch turns off the tape player, and we're gonna see an extreme close-up of Joe. He's like, I don't know what to say, Mitch. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. I was too invested in this project to just walk away. Mitch says, listen, Joe, we like you. We believe in the network. I mean, look, you walked away from your own company when your board voted against us. But Ryan, let's face it, Ryan doesn't sound like a guy who's going to keep his mouth shut. His next call could be to my boss. I mean, Ryan has lost it, unfortunately. And he's leaving messages like this as proof. Joe says Ryan would never do that. Joe's instinct is to protect Ryan. Mitch says, well, regardless, we can't work with somebody who's being investigated for computer fraud, who blatantly violated major legislation that went into effect this year. And for me, this is Mitch sort of confirming my understanding of why this mattered so much right now. Gordon says, Joe didn't do anything wrong. Mitch says, I'm not saying he did, but until we find the person who is responsible, you two need to stay away from each other. And this network contract is frozen. Mitch is going to walk out. Gordon looks pained. Joe also grimaces. He sighs. Gordon's like, how did Ryan know we were working together? Down to the details of my negotiations with Cisco? Because remember, Gordon's working on this and Joe is a silent partner, but not silent enough for Ryan not to figure this out. So Joe says he must be reading our emails. He built the network. He knows how to get inside better than anyone. Gordon kind of shrugs. He walks over to Joe. He's like, we've got to turn him in. Joe says, there's got to be another way. Gordon says, what are you talking about? Did you hear the tape? The contract's frozen. Like, this guy is he's gonna squawk. Joe looks at Gordon. He says, I can't do that to him. Gordon says, oh, Christ, Joe. Joe's like, he's my friend. Gordon looks a little hurt. He says, I thought I was your friend. No? Joe can't respond. Gordon just walks away. I mean, look, Joe, season 1 Joe would have turned on anyone at any time. Season 1 Joe, look, I mean, maybe nothing was quite as extreme as this situation, but Joe is willing to hurt just about anybody in any way to advance his objectives. And this is a personal line he is not willing to cross, and it is with Ryan. And it is to the detriment of a business deal with Gordon. Good thing I think Gordon has a little perspective here. I think he's still hurt. I think that he wishes things weren't like this, but I also don't know that Gordon would hold this choice against Joe necessarily. He sees the reasoning behind it. All right, we're going to see Kim in her house watching The Evil Dead from 1981. A character in the movie is screaming. She's got a bowl full of boxes of Good and Plenty, and she's eating them. Maybe she'll give some to the trick-or-treaters, but maybe she'll just eat that entire thing herself. The doorbell rings. She goes to get it. Some kids say trick or treat. We're going to get a girl who's a witch. We're going to get a boy who's a hobo, and we're going to get an elf. Side note, I think elf might have been the first word I ever wrote while I was watching it. I was like, elf. And then I announced it to the world. Alien life form, okay? Alpha was so cute. Anyway, Kim says, oh, you're the first non-princess I've seen for hours. The witch says, I hate princesses. Kim says, me too. Hobo says, you only got one thing. He's looking at the bowl. It's Good and Plenty. And frankly, the one thing isn't that great. Kim says, yeah, take it or leave it. So that's all the witch needed to hear. She takes so many Good and Plenty boxes. The hobo takes a couple. And Elf is just sort of standing there. And Kim says, Elf, shoo. He grabs a couple and runs away. He's terrified. She shakes her head. She goes back inside. And for those who are wondering, I don't know if people use the word hobo. It feels weird to say the word hobo. That is what this person is credited as in the credits. So that is how I refer to them. All right. Cam is still now, she sits back on the couch. We just fast forward to her back on the couch watching Evil Dead again. There's going to be a knock on the door. More trick-or-treaters? She goes to open it, and we see her very surprised profile. And then we see who's on the other side of the door. It is Joe in a long coat. Nice long black coat. Okay. Cam is like, oh, she laughs a little. She says, it's a very tall child dressed as Joe McMillan. Joe says, Batman was sold out. Can I come in? Oh my God, what a great line. I should have put that in my honorable mentions. Batman was sold out. Lee Pace would make a great Batman, I think, right? Okay. Cam lets him in. She says, yeah, he's going to stand just inside the door. I mean, look, what a tense situation they've had in season 3. It's been fraught. They've had interactions, but they've been fraught. And, most recently, a very tense whispering conversation at 1:30 a.m. in Joe's apartment, where he realized she was wearing a wedding ring, and she says, you have to give Gordon credit. And he's like, whoever you were standing next to, you thought you were happy, but it was just I don't know. They're in a space, but he needs a favor. And so he's gonna walk inside her house. He's kind of standing near the door. He's standing lit by the natural light coming from the window. He says, he's looking, he says, it's a good color. He's looking at the color of the place. She says, it's a work in progress. She shuts the door. She says, what's going on? I assume you're not here for the candy. And he says, I've got a problem. She's like, it sounds like you've got a lot of problems. She laughs a little bit. She says, I mean, unless it's true, there's no such thing as bad publicity. Joe says, I'm not responsible for the leak. He moves away from the window. Her arms are folded. She's very closed here. Her posture, her body language is closed, but she's also being fairly flippant about, I mean, it's maybe a nervous reaction, but things are serious right now for Joe, and she's meeting it with like awkward laughing and stuff. And so she's like, yeah, I figured, clearly it was someone with actual skills. Joe has walked his way over to standing in front of the other window, so he's lit by that natural light. He pauses when she says that. He's like, it's like she's just saying things that feel like low blows, but I don't think she's trying to give him low blows. I think she's awkward and uncomfortable, and these are the things that are coming out of her mouth. But that one is very reminiscent of a conversation they actually had where she saw him at the college, and he's like, I'm really trying to learn to code. She's like, yeah, right. So here she is saying awkwardly, like, yeah, I figured it was somebody with actual skills. She's like, I just mean, obviously it was Ryan. Joe says, Joe is just like brushing all of this off because he has a specific purpose there. He says, I need to find him, and he's off the grid. So a really interesting choice that we're getting with the camera in this scene. Multiple times, we're going to see the camera behind a wall looking into the room. It's sort of like, it's as if there's a person going like this to watch what's happening with Joe and Cam in this room. So we're going to see that for the first time right here, where we have that look of like, we're hiding in the next room. Joe's saying, I need to find him. He's off the grid. The feds are calling me every week. Kim says, I bet, probably because every chat room online thinks you're some kind of 8-bit Robin Hood. Still a little flippant. Joe looks a little bit upset by that. He says, I didn't make Ryan do this. And he inhales. And this is where I think this scene turns. Cam goes, I think up until this point, Cam did not have control of her faculties. Like, it was like, she was like, what do you do? Joe McMillan's in my house. What do I, like, whoa, nobody panic. But she was panicking a little. And I think she sees how that last line landed. I didn't make Ryan do this. And he like inhales, waiting for the next arrows to fly at him. And Cam sees that and she gets more serious now. She says, in a reassuring way, she says, yeah, I know it's hard to make Ryan do anything. Joe says, if you could send out a flare, I mean, Ryan's talented, but if anyone can track him, Cam's trying to understand where Joe is sitting with all of this. She's like, are you going to turn him in? He says, no, I'm worried about him. He's running out of options. And he looks very worried. And Cam nods. And then unfortunately, the movie has still been playing in the background. It's been a dialogue section, but we're going to get louder voices and screaming starting to happen. And she goes over to the TV. She turns it off. We're seeing her from behind the wall again. Cam's like, sorry. She laughs a little bit because that was awkward. Joe says, how are you doing? Cam says, never better, as I'm sure you can see. We're behind the wall again. Joe says, well, look at us. He says all this smile, this whole next section smiling. He says, 2 unemployed CEOs, both ousted from our companies. Mine's toast and yours is going public. Cam smiles a bit, but frankly, neither of them want to smash. Like, yeah. Joe says quietly, Gordon told me. The name of a person who was in that board meeting. Cam sort of takes that in. She's uncomfortable. She's like, yeah. Joe says, I'm working with Gordon now. And this surprises Cam. She's like, really? And she laughs, and so does Joe. She's like, well, now there's a twist. He says, you were right. I needed to give him credit and include him. And we're working on something that I'm really excited about. So thank you for that. He turns away from her toward the opposite wall, and he sees something of interest. She says, well, thank you. Presumably she's saying thank you for having told Gordon because she asked him to do that. Joe sees some Polaroids pinned to the mantle. We can't really make out exactly what's there, but it's obviously pictures of Cam and Tom. So these are the family photos. Joe says, oh, him. Cam kind of walks around the room until she's standing against the opposite window, still not near Joe. He says, you picked a good guy. He's lucky. I'm like, oh, the guy that I verbally combated with over a cup of tea at the Mutiny House. Him, right? Yeah. Kim says, I'm pretty sure right now I'm just making him miserable. Joe does not address this. He sees the wasp's nest, which she must have taken care of. And it's, no wasps in it, just the nest. If this were me, under no circumstances would I have done a thing about that wasp nest myself. Like, I'm phoning a friend, maybe an exterminator. But she, Cam took care of it. Joe is very impressed. He says, I haven't seen one of these since I was a kid. That's scary. It's Halloween. Cam says, yeah, I had to zap it because of Halloween. I didn't want those little wieners getting stung. He inspects it. They both look at it closely. They're getting physically closer together. They're looking at it. He's looking at it. He's showing her something. And they realize they're a little too close. And they're both like, they kind of pull away from each other. He's like, I'd appreciate your help with Ryan. And he turns to leave. He opens the door. She shouts back to him. She throws him a good and plenty, which he catches. She's like, here, trick or treat. He goes out the door. She watches from where she's standing. She can see him walking away through the window, and she is watching. And then we watch her from behind the wall. What a cool choice with the camera there. Like, to be an actual fly on the wall in the room for that whole thing, or maybe a wasp, maybe a rogue wasp. Look, what a scene. These Cam and Joe scenes, I'm telling you. I'm really, between the way that he's interacting with Cam here and the way that he was interacting with Gordon when Gordon came by his place and was sort of surveying all of Joe's stuff and was very cocky about it. Joe has learned the art of counting to 5. He is not engaging in verbal battles with these folks. He, even when they're insulting him and he might be inclined to defend himself, he just takes these jabs to the chin. And in this particular case, there was an objective of whatever she says to me, however weird this is, I really am worried about Ryan, and she's the only one I know who can help me find him. There was a real objective here, and whatever he had to sit through to make this objective occur, he was willing to do. With the Gordon scene, maybe he had an objective with that too, of like, I ultimately want to ask him for charity. Like, just give me a cut. Just give me a finder's fee. Maybe that was the objective there. On the other hand, maybe he knew he deserved some percentage of Gordon's wrath. Not all of it, because he had offered him partnership twice. But I think maybe what was keeping him calm in that situation was, I know I'm going to ask for this finder's fee. In this situation, I think the stakes are higher because he's very invested in Ryan's safety, and he knows he has to keep his cool, because the point of this, whatever pride he has to swallow to be in this room with Cam, or whatever feelings he has to swallow, there was one mission and he has to achieve it. I think to Cam's credit, she's eventually able to like calm herself. And remember, I think he walked into her house out of the blue on a day when we're seeing all these signs of her anxiety. So like, she has to bring that down. She has to like find a way to calm herself to be able to have a conversation with him. And I think, by the end of this episode, we know that she does immediately take action to try to find Ryan. It appears to be months before, or a long time before she actually locates Ryan. So I suspect she never let up in that process. She was regularly checking. She goes to get Ryan. She goes to have a conversation with Ryan. She doesn't tell Joe. I'm assuming she's not reporting back to Joe on a regular basis, but Ryan shows up on Joe's door. And whether or not, I don't know for sure if he knew that Cam had been following up, but Cam was following up. And so I think she was willing to do this for Joe, and she was willing to stay focused on it for Joe. And I think it's something like this. It's all the stuff between the scenes, all the stuff that I'm imagining, that shows me the strength of these relationships. Even a relationship that is as deeply problematic right now and uncomfortable as the one between Joe and Cam. Problematic in the way that there's just so much stuff that's happened. And yet they are both willing to put stuff on a shelf to do a thing that the other one needs. And, him coming in and saying, you were right. I gave Gordon the credit, and now we're partners. And that was him putting all his stuff on a shelf to do the thing Cam asked him to do. And he's got a good partnership out of it now. well, who knows what their project looks like, but the partnership's strong. So I think we're really seeing like, no matter what's happening between us, if you need something, I will be there. Very complicated, really, really interesting, and kind of beautiful. As much as, season one, Cam and Joe, I was like, abort mission, like this is toxic. But we've gotten to a point where here in season three, I'm like, look, it's messy. It's complicated. They've got stuff, but they're willing to be there for each other, even in the most uncomfortable of situations. So it's kind of beautiful. All right, the phone's going to ring at the Clark house. Want to talk about a relationship that's in a very different place? Holy moly. The phone rings at the Clark house. Haley picks it up. It's a cool blue phone. I don't know if I really processed a blue phone before. Why not? Huh? I love blue. I don't know what to tell you. Haley's dressed as an Ewok. She says, Clark residence. Donna's calling in. Hi, sweetheart. How's your costume? Haley says, good, a little itchy. My teacher said I have to call my spear a walking stick. Oh, teachers. Donna says, why? Haley says, I don't know. Kids aren't supposed to have spears. Donna says, well, can they have imaginary spears? Good point. Haley says, I don't know. Didn't ask that. Donna says, well, you tell her. Haley doesn't want to talk to her anymore. Haley's like, Daddy, Mommy's on the phone. She goes, she puts the phone down. She runs away from it. Donna's like, Haley, have the best time, sweetheart, okay? Haley's not on the phone anymore. I feel like this is the State of the Union with the Clark, like everybody in the Clark house and Donna. Gordon is going to grab the phone. Hey, he sounds so like over it in this conversation. Donna's like, hi. He says, how's it going? He goes to start doing Joni's hair. She's dressed as a football player. Donna says, pretty good. I think you did it all right today. How are things going over there? He's saying it's fine. We hear Joni saying, no, a braid. Donna, we now see that she's sitting alone in a hotel room. She says, is that Joni? Can I talk to her? Gordon's like, hey, Mom wants to talk with you. Joni is like, not while you're braiding. It'll be all lopsided. Her girls don't want to talk with her. And frankly, neither does Gordon. I was like, all right, that's okay. Just tell her to have fun. What's she going as? Gordon says, Joan Montana. Great reference. Donna laughs. She says, take pictures. Okay. He says, I'll do that. She scrunches up her forehead a little bit. She's like, Gordon, I miss you. He shakes out his hand. I don't know if it's like a hand weakness thing that's happening for him, grip strength thing. Gordon's like, yep, miss you too. He hangs up quickly. It's like, oh man, couldn't get off the phone without having to say something like that. Ugh, I feel absolutely no love I feel no love from Gordon to Donna here. Joni says, hurry up, Daddy. Donna looks bummed. Like she didn't really get a quality opportunity to talk with any member of her family. She's still holding on to the phone, and then she finally hangs it up. Okay, we are going to see what Cam does as a result of talking with Joe. She goes onto a community message board with the intention of finding Ryan. The message board is called Are You Safe? She is signed in as Alf. She types, all right, everyone, I need to figure this out. Joe McMillan, hero or hoax? Now, remember, the Forbes magazine that he was on the cover of said, was it free or fraud? I love that every time we're posing a question in writing about Joe, it's very binary. Is he this or is he this? Is he a good guy or is he a bad guy? And we put all these different labels on it. And I think depending on who you are in season 3, you could have a different answer to this. Like your perspective, he's like a living, walking Rorschach test. It's like, this is Joe McMillan. What do you see? I see a hoax. I see a hero. It's everybody can see a different thing in him depending on what their point of view is and what information they have. We are gonna pretty much the only actual song that I caught in this whole episode is playing here, but unfortunately I was not able to track down a title. I typed in lyrics. I'm gonna call it Blue Dream. I'm here to tell you that the lyric that we're gonna get here is, "You wake up back in bed with a blue dream." What? That means something really specific to me, in terms of maybe how Cam could be feeling about the concept of Joe. I don't know. So anyway, she's staring at the screen. We are now going to see a new angle of this room from sort of the corner of the ceiling from behind Cam. Distant, very distant. Once again, we're a fly on the wall in so many rooms, or a wasp on the wall in so many rooms, if you will. Okay, now we're going to cut to December 18th, 1986. I really sat with these timestamps as I was watching the episode this time, because I think on previous watches, it didn't really hit me how long Ryan has been in hiding. He has been in hiding for a while, months, multiple months. That's a long time. And I think when we actually get a glimpse of him again in this episode and he looks exhausted and paranoid, if I sit with the fact that it has been as many months as it's been, you know, I feel horrible for this kid. Yes, he committed a crime. This is not sustainable. But anyway, we're not there yet. We're going to go to another amazing scene. So we're in the Clark house. The Clark house has both a Christmas tree and a menorah in it. We're going to see from one angle, we're going to see Joe and Gordon in this scene, mostly at the kitchen table, or the kitchen table area. And so we're going to see from one angle a Christmas tree that's lit up. There are markers and drawing materials all over the table they're sitting at. There's a lot of Christmas decorations kind of strung up around the house. Gordon says, 2 kids, 3 ring circus. Joe is smiling. He's like, "Haley's like a tiny prosecutor. She kept coming down here to offer evidence against her sister." Gordon says, "Yeah, Joni's too scary to convict." Joe takes a sip of beer. He says, "Her teenage self is lurking on the horizon like some post-apocalyptic ravager." She was like, "Ravager, huh?" He says, "You have no idea. So I was hoping you heard some news." Let's pause here for a second. Let's go back and talk about these kids. Gordon and Joe are prepping for the holidays together. They're spending time with the kids. Donna is nowhere to be found in the household, right? Joe is assessing it. Haley is like a tiny prosecutor. And Gordon is saying Joni is too scary to convict. I feel like that is like in direct relationship to the way Gordon and Donna are in their relationship, right? Donna is too scary to convict. Gordon is, the evidence he has been collecting against Donna is mounting. This is what I'm seeing here. And Joe's just kind of observing it all. Okay, so Gordon says, I was hoping you had heard some news. Joe shakes his head. He says, "I haven't heard from him." Joe must be beside himself. Gordon says, "Can I ask you a question?" I would give anything just to look at what this looked like in a script. Like, to see what Scoot and Lee did with this scene, where there was almost no intelligible dialogue on the page for this whole little sequence that comes up here. Amazing. So Gordon says, "Can I ask you a question?" He hesitates because he doesn't really want to ask that question. He says, "Were you and Ryan ever, you know, Joe?" I think Joe knows what he means, but he's like, "What?" He's going to make Gordon struggle through this. Gordon says, did you you know, you know, Joe was a little firmer. He's like, what? Princess, were you, more than friends? And he holds his breath. I don't think he holds his breath for the answer. I think he holds his breath like is it okay what he just put out there? Like I think it's not so much worried that Joe's going to say yes as much as Joe worried that as much as Gordon's worried that Joe's just like going to explode or something. I don't know what he thinks is going to happen here, but he was very hesitant to put this question out, and it was deliciously awkward in him trying to put this out there. Um, the second he says more than friends, the second he finally gets a word out that is confirmation of the conversation, Joe's fine with it. He's like, I never had those feelings for Ryan. He was just making Gordon twist in the wind for the whole damn thing. Gordon's like, he sort of shrugs. Joe says, actually, he kind of reminds me of you. And Gordon's like, oh, come on, please don't say that. Oh, I don't know how to respond to that. And Joe just starts laughing once again, toying with Gordon. Funniest, like, he's just like, Gordon, anyway, so Gordon's like, stop messing with me. But they both laugh. These two. Joe says, I guess this is something he's been thinking about for a while. Gordon has been hanging on for a long time, waiting for this resolution with Joe and Ryan's situation. Joe says, you should move forward with the NSFNet project alone. This completely catches Gordon off guard. He is not at all angling for that, and we know why, but Joe does not yet. He's like, what are you talking about? Joe says, I don't want to hold you back. Gordon says, you're not holding me back. You're helping me. Joe says, Gordon, Mitch was pretty clear about this. Gordon's like, Joe, please don't do this. He doesn't want Joe to remove himself from this partnership. Joe says, you know how these things work. If you miss the window, Gordon says, I can't do it alone. He means because he's sick. Joe doesn't know that. Joe says, yes, you can. Don't sell yourself short. Oh, Joe, you don't know what conversation you're having right now, but that's really sweet. Gordon gulps. This is the time. Gordon says, I'm sick, Joe. This is the classic, most easily documentable moment of little boy face from Joe that I'll probably find in the entire series. Joe is devastated to hear this. But unfortunately, so Joe's head, he was sort of tilted, and Gordon says, I'm sick. And he's like, it's up right now. And he says, what? Gordon says, I'm sick. Joe's like trying to like shake this off, like it can make it not be said. He says, what the hell does that mean? The telephone rings. Talk about a badly timed telephone call. Gordon gets up. He says, hang on real quick. Joe's like, Gordon. Gordon says, hang on, I gotta get this. Joe's got his little boy face. He's like, leave it. He's like, do not make me sit with this for any longer than I have to without knowing what you mean. Gordon says, look, it could be Donna. Just give me 2 seconds. Joe's whole world feels like it's crumbling. I mean, who does Joe have right now? Joe has nobody. He has nobody. He hasn't really, I don't know that he knows that Cam's been doing work for him this whole time. So I don't know to what extent he thinks, I mean, and that was a one-time conversation. She's doing work for him, but that doesn't mean they're hanging out. He has no relationship with Donna. He has no relationship with Boz. Where the hell is Ryan? He's got no company. This relationship with Gordon and this experience he's having with Gordon's kids, this is who is in his world. And the most important part of his world that is currently in it is sick. So Gordon has gotten up to get the phone, and Gordon answers the phone, and he's like, hello, no, I got the kids. All right, look, I'll figure something out. Yep. We never leave Joe's face for all of the Gordon's conversation on the phone. Gordon sighs, he hangs up the phone. He says, that was mutiny. They need me to, we need to talk. All right. But right now, I need a favor from you, which he's probably gonna, I don't know, say, watch the kids or something. I don't know. Joe was just looking up at him. Look, because Gordon was standing and Joe was sitting, and Joe's like, and Joe says, you're not going anywhere until you tell me what's going on. Gordon says, look, I can't. I gotta go. Joe says, sit down. And Gordon goes to open his mouth to argue, and Joe says, sit. And Gordon sits. And Joe leans all the way in to hear what Gordon's about to say. We don't get to hear Gordon reveal this to Joe, but for me, I don't need to hear it. We know what Gordon's about to say. Everything that I just saw about Joe's initial reaction tells me everything I need to know about how he's going to react to hearing the full news. These moments of this reveal, the moment when Gordon revealed his illness to Cameron, watching her watch him faint, pass out, fall over, and her fear around that, her prodding and saying, you have to tell me now, something is up. And then seeing when he tells her, the way that strengthened their bond, the way that made her go to Joe, the way that made her ask Joe to help Gordon, to like give that partnership to Gordon. Now we're getting to see Joe and the way that he reacts to this. And gosh, Joe is just, it's like his whole safety system, his security net, his world, his connection to humans is wrapped up so much in Gordon right now. Gordon is really important to him. This scene is so beautiful. Look how far they've come this season. I mean, Gordon rejecting Joe's offer for partnership at the end of season 2 really hurt Joe. And, you know, Gordon feeling like Joe had stolen his idea, and really clinging to that, and the anger that Gordon was feeling, which I think was a lot of some of it was directed towards Joe, but I think a lot of it was displaced from maybe Donna and his situation. And so, like, what a road these two have walked, and they've both have every reason to feel like they've slighted each other. And I think that's slightly misinformed on both sides. But now I see the bond that they've got by December 1986. And I just think, what a beautiful friendship, bromance, whatever this is they've developed. There's something rock solid underneath it. And I think Gordon sharing his news just lifts it to the surface for us. What a great scene. This show is full of great scenes, right? Okay. Kim didn't stop looking for Ryan all this time. She's found him. We are behind Cam, point of view, behind Cameron's head as she walks into a college dorm common area. She looks around. She spots Ryan across the room. He's napping on a couch. He's got a hood on. She crouches down. She touches him gently. She says, Ryan. She wakes him up. Ryan sits up quickly. How did you find me? Cam says, I put up the Are You Safe board on Mutiny. You logged in remotely through an FTP connection. Ryan says, you wrote a software trap alerting you to my activity, including the university main lines. Oh, I should have thought about this. Cam says, hey, I'm not here to bust you or anything. Ryan's looking around paranoid, like, who's going to spot me? She says, Joe wants to help you. I want to help you. He stands up quickly. He starts packing a bag. The last time we saw Ryan, he was quickly packing a bag. He's just packing bags quickly everywhere he goes. He's looking suspiciously at her, at everybody else. She says, hey, Ryan, you can't live off Dr. Pepper and Cheez-Its forever. Believe me, I've tried. Where have you been? He says, I crashed with friends for a while. The cops, they keep tracking me. She says, how did you know? Ryan says, I could feel it. Somebody was following me. And my buddy, he kept getting these weird phone calls. Cam nods. She's not going to debate him on that. She's not going to fight him on that. She nods. She says, yeah. She sits down. Just by believing him, that calms Ryan down enough to have a conversation. So he sits down too. He says, and I took the bus down to San Diego. I stayed with my cousin. He's a wannabe tech guy and a total asshole. He said he wouldn't rat me out, but I knew he would, you know? I hitched a ride back to San Francisco. I needed a cup of coffee and a computer, so I blended right in here. It's like I'm invisible. Joe probably hates me now. For, like that whole speech, he's been in hiding. He's been trying to figure out who he can trust. He can trust nobody. And the last thing that he uses as a button on that is Joe probably hates me now. Cam says, oh no, she scoffs. She's like, no. And even if he is pissed, he'll get over it. Joe can be surprisingly forgiving. Maybe it's because he screwed up his own life so many times. She laughs a little bit. She says, like, if you don't want me to tell him where you are, I won't. But he really just wants to walk you through your options. He is worried about you. And look, I found you, so you can't hide forever. That makes sense to Ryan. I think he knows she's speaking the truth here. He can't live like this forever. This is going to get through to him completely. We are going to find Cam. I mean, she's doing this for Joe. She's doing this for Ryan as well. And this is the most we've ever seen her connect with Ryan effectively. We've seen her interact with him a few times and she didn't connect. And here she gets through to him. Plus, I think she just gave him the great gift of saying Joe's not angry with you. He probably has wanted nothing more than to talk to Joe. All right, we're going to see Gordon in the mutiny basement, sort of a bunch of computers around him. Another really interesting camera choice. The camera is embedded behind a shelving system. We've seen this type of thing done before. I'm thinking of like Joe revealing the giant to the Cardiff Electric team. There was like a cart and the camera was underneath the cart. I remember that. This kind of reminds me of that a little bit, but the camera is behind a shelving system so we can see the shelves. We can see the stuff on the shelves. We see Gordon in the room. He's sitting down. We see the bottom half of Boz in the room. And then Gordon is going to go over to the shelving system at some point and start working on something. He's repairing or adjusting something. But we hear Boz say, I thought you were going to bring the girlies along. Gordon says, no, found a great new sitter, really flexible. I'm thinking that's going to be Joe. Boz is pouring some wild turkey for both of them. Gordon crouches at that shelving system. Boz says, well, thanks for bailing me out. I didn't want to worry Donna on the eve of her big day. It's like, yeah. Boz says, what are you going to do with your share of the IPO? So they're all planning, what am I going to do with that money? Gordon says, I don't know. I guess I should make some plans. They're saying it's going to open at 15. Boz laughs like, 15. Who would have thunk it? Gordon says, what are you going to do with your share? Boz says, oh, stash away some for a college fund type thing for my grandson. That is, if that's all right with James, because we don't know if it's all right with James based on their last interaction. Gordon says, yeah, why wouldn't it be? Boz kind of leans down at Gordon's level so we can see his face. She says, well, you never know what might hit a nerve. Gordon says, all right, well, you talk to Cam? Boz says, no. You? Gordon says, nope, but she'll be a millionaire tomorrow. He finishes fixing whatever he's working on. He says, she can't be too sorry about that. Boz says, hey, here's to go in public. Gordon says, to go in public, and they clink glasses. Couple interesting pieces of information that we get here, or helpful pieces of information we get here, is that the stock is supposed to open at 15. So that is going to be very important for us to know later. And then, where are things in terms of the relationship between Boz and Cam and Gordon and Cam? Currently nowhere. Nobody feels comfortable to make that approach. I think Gordon probably would feel more like I think Cam probably doesn't have the same kind of hard feelings towards Gordon. He gave her the information. He was very upfront that he couldn't vote with her, but that he wanted to. With Boz, who knows where it sits right now with them. All right, we're going to see Cam inside her house. She runs to open the front door. There's a sparse little Christmas tree in there. We hear that somebody has dropped off Tom. He got a ride with somebody and they brought him back. So Cam's going to greet Tom at the door. They smile at each other. He's like, "Well, look at you waiting for me at the front door." She says, "Mm-hmm." He says, "We're one apron away from a lifelong fantasy." I mean, as much as that's a joke, I'm getting a sense that he's kind of a traditional guy, which isn't how we maybe would have thought of him when we met him. But he, found work with the company he loved in Mutiny in season 2. He's long been taking care of his mom. I feel like this does make sense to me that he wants something a little more traditional in his relationship. And now his life is getting settled. Very much so, as we're about to find in this scene. So she smiles, they kiss. He's like, "I've got a proposition for you." She's very excited about something. She whispers to him, "Can I show you something first?" He says, yeah. She brings him into the next room where there's a computer and she shows him a game she's been working on. It's just the start of it. She says it's called the Space Bike Chronicles. First screen we're seeing is just some simple green and red graphics. It's more of an idea. He says, okay. She says, "This is our hero. She doesn't have a name." We're going to see a new screen. The hero is in space. She's moving towards a blue planet. I love that we see so much of the screen is black with some very simple sort of like outlines of red. The figures are meant to be seeing, but we're seeing Tom and Cam's reflection in the screen. They're in Space Bike. She's moving towards a blue planet. And she's just cruising through the post-apocalyptic future on her badass space bike. She looks at Tom. She says, "And all she needs to survive are gas, candy, and the occasional long hot shower." We're going to go back to the screen and the reflections. She says, "So she travels to planets and asteroids and space stations trying to get what she needs." We're going to go back to Cam's face. Oh, and when she arrives at a new place, she tries to win one of the 5 senses. Tom is watching her talk about this, and he's got this look of love on his face. She says each one arms her with a different power. A sense of proportion allows her to change size. A sense of humor allows her to fend off most forms of attack. A sense of self allows her to appear and disappear. Okay, well, decency doesn't give her an actual power, but it makes it possible for her to win the rarest sense of all, common sense. And she smiles. She says, which lets her see everything more clearly. She smiles back at Tom. He's smiling back at her. He's admiring her. He says, "It's beautiful." She laughs. He says, "How do you win?" She says, "You don't. You just get to keep playing." He says, "I love it." And they kiss. Pause. I feel like this has been her therapy. I feel like Cam needs tools and resources and outlets like this. We know she deals with anxiety. We know she deals with panic attacks. She's got a lot going on emotionally for her and in terms of how she processes things. And she's never really had anybody give her tools, or she never really had an opportunity to learn some useful tools to deal with those things. And I really feel like her working on this game is working through a lot of that. The 5 senses that she chooses here, let's see, sense of proportion allows her to change size. And also like the idea of blowing things out of proportion or putting things into proportion for me connects it with that. The sense of humor, maybe that's a reason why we see like a response to Joe walking into her house on an anxiety filled day is meeting things with humor and then realizing that wasn't the situation for it. But yeah, maybe having a bit of humor. Sense of self allows her to appear and disappear. For most of the people in her world right now, she is disappeared. So that is, and then she can reappear. And that's the same kind of thing that she did when she went away to Texas to get Tom to begin with. She disappeared from mutiny and then she reappeared again. And so for her, that's a superpower. Sense of decency, something that she is aspiring for. And then common sense. She says the rarest of all. So, I think about these things, like she's really trying to, it seems like she's trying to think more practically. She is creating the space bike figure, which maybe has attributes she wants, and that's what she's working towards. And then how do you win? You don't, you just get to keep playing. And such is life, isn't it? Okay, so Tom says, come here, come on up. And she sits on his lap and she's looking down at him. He says, do you want to hear the proposition? She says, mm-hmm. He says, how do you feel about moving to Japan? She's like, what? He nods, he's serious. He says, they want to move me up all the way to Tokyo. He's trying to see how this is landing. And she's surprised, but extremely receptive. She says, that's perfect. Tom says, really? She smiles. She says, yeah. They make out. So I think, it's coming together for Tom. He had all these ideals that brought him to the right company. He found the girl, he fell in love. He got it didn't work. And then it did. And she retrieved him from Texas and they got married. He's got the wife. He got a stable job. He realized maybe I shouldn't be working with the company that she's at, the one with all the ideals that's, even though it's growing, maybe I should get a job at a bigger company, a company that obviously is a corporation that has offices in San Francisco and Tokyo at the very least. And now they want to move him up in that company. He's obviously got a network that we learned by the end of season 2. And a lot of people who respect him. And so he's been promoted and he's going to maybe the main office of this company. And his wife's coming with him. I mean, everything's coming up Tom right now, isn't it? So it kind of makes sense to me that he's settling down. He's got his looking for his stability. Not that he wasn't necessarily settled before, but he's definitely looking for something solid in his world. And Cam is saying, yeah, I'm into it too. Let's go to Tokyo. All right. Joe opens the door of his apartment. His apartment is dark. He shuts the door. He throws the keys into a little trinket container. He walks a little bit into the room to get to the light switch. He turns on the light and he cannot believe what he sees. Ryan is in the room. He says, Ryan, now we're going to see Ryan, who is sitting on the couch facing away from us and Joe. It's like the camera angle we've been seeing for everybody else. Ryan's facing the windows. He's wearing his Adidas sweatshirt. He's looking casual. Ryan says, why did you lie to me? Why did you cut me out? Joe says, I didn't do either of those things. I planned to bring you in. Ryan says, bring me in? I created the whole thing. He looks at Joe. He stands. He walks to him. He says, I put the code out there, really made it free when you didn't have the guts to do it yourself. And I've been out there ever since, defending your name, telling the real story. Joe's like, I've been worried about you. He pulls up a kitchen chair. He says, sit down. They sit across from each other. Ryan's like, I know you're angry. Just admit it. Joe says, I'm not. I wish you hadn't upset the NSF net deal. You've made things much harder, but that is less important than knowing that you're okay. Ryan sees how Joe's looking at him. He realizes there's truth here and he's listening. I have a lot to say about this scene and I'm trying to decide where to put it. So first of all, Joe, the Rorschach test, whatever, like, we as viewers are seeing everything that's happened with Joe. I really feel that Joe has a strong connection with Ryan. He cares about Ryan. He's been mentoring Ryan. He's invested in Ryan's safety. But if you are Ryan here, all of these things look really suspicious, the same way it did for Cam last season. You know, like, everything that Ryan's seeing suggests that Joe has been playing him the entire time. He only can go off of his instincts. Like, he'd have to ignore all of the circumstantial evidence that suggests that Joe is guilty of the crimes that he's saying right here. He has to ignore all of that if he wants to go with the instinct that Joe actually cares about him. Because, you know, like, Ryan did all of this work. You know, he created the foundation for all of this. Joe initially spotted what the real idea was. He's been nurturing Ryan through this process. But yes, Ryan did a lot of the heavy lifting here, if not most of the heavy lifting here. And then, you know, things go sideways with Joe at McMillan Utility. And Joe's like, oh, we have to have some distance from each other. And then Gordon swoops in, knowing everything about what the idea is. Ryan has no idea that Gordon figured it out on his own. And then it's like, no, I never wanted to partner with Gordon, but here they are, partners. Joe is a silent partner. Ryan's been reading the emails. He can see all of this traffic between them. And then, like, on top of it all, Joe did not bring Ryan in on it. He had the key to McMillan Utility or Citadel Utility or Clark Utility, whatever it's going to be called. He had the key. He was going to bring it to Ryan when Ryan said what he did. And then he put the key back in his pocket. Joe was going to bring Ryan in, but he did not bring Ryan in because Ryan just committed a crime, a really, really serious offense. And that made Joe skittish about involving Ryan at that moment. But if you're Ryan, you're thinking, why are you and Gordon the partners here and I'm not part of your plan? Like, you're just stealing my work too now? You stole Gordon's work. You infiltrated Mutiny. Like all these things that you did. Like, it feels like Ryan is another extension of this story. So who is Joe? Really depends who you talk to. And yeah, I get what Ryan's saying here. So Joe is saying, no, I've really been worried about you. I wanted to know that you're okay. Ryan is sort of assessing him, and I think he sees that there's truth to that. And he's trying to figure out how to put away all this other stuff he's been noticing. Joe says, as I see it, you've got two options. You can turn yourself in and own up to what you did, or you can run. Ryan has this stare. I think it's a numb stare. Could be icy, could be tired. I think it's numb. And he says, either way, I'll help you. Ryan's like, how? Joe says, if you run, I'll give you 50 grand, drive you to the bus station, and then you can disappear. But the network you and I created will disappear too. Ryan's sort of disgusted at that idea. He says, no, I don't want that. Joe nods. He says, I put in a call to my lawyer. If you turn yourself in, you'll serve no more than a year or two. Ryan is rubbing his face. He is pained. He says, I can't. Joe says, listen to me. A hacker that violates the CFAA can't touch a computer for at least 5 years. Ryan looks so pained by this. He lashes out. He's like, 5 years? That's insane. And that's an impossible choice. Joe says, it's better than 10 years in prison. That's the maximum. I know it sounds like a long time, but you're young. And it's like you told me, destruction leads to transformation. You've got plenty of time to reinvent yourself. Ryan hears something that he likes in that. He says, yeah, that's what I want to do. Start again with you, like when you first hired me. We sat right here, making shit up, writing ideas on the board. Joe nods. He looks away. That's not happening. Ryan's like, okay, all right, fine. So let's say I do what you say and I serve my time. Tell me we can still work together. And he looks at Joe for confirmation. He's like, right, that's the plan. Joe whispers, that's not possible. Ryan says, but you would have done the same thing. You're a master at this kind of move. It's classic Joe McMillan. Joe says, and this possibly is my favorite line in the entire series. It's in a conversation for best lines. He says, I can't work with Joe McMillan anymore. Ryan slams the chair he's holding. He points at Joe angrily, and then he thinks, and he's like, fine. I'll do this with or without you. Joe says, I hope you do. Ryan lashes out in a sort of decisive fashion. He says, you're a hypocrite and you always have been. Joe closes his eyes. He nods. He stands, he takes off his jacket. He says, you don't have to decide tonight. I want you to sleep here and we can talk more in the morning, but you need some rest, Ryan. I'll get some sheets and we can make up the sofa. Ryan, he sighs and he sits on the edge of the table. Okay, here's the thing. If you showed me season 1 and then you skipped season 2 and the beginning of season 3, if you showed me season 1 and 2 and then you skipped the beginning of season 3 right to this scene, I would say, is he manipulating Ryan here? Because again, if we've got the Rorschach test, like everything that Joe's doing can be seen from all of these different lights. Is he manipulating Ryan? I don't think so. I think he really loves Ryan and cares about Ryan. But he's saying things that are manipulating Ryan right now. And it's like, so I will help you either way. Here's your options. You can run. And then you're ruining everything. Like, basically, like, you can run, totally cool. I'll help you do it. Hey, I'll never be able to work on this project. Nobody ever will. This project is dead. Our dream is done. Ron's like, no, that doesn't appear to be a good option. Joe's like, alternative, you do jail time and you don't touch a computer again for a long, long time. Ryan's like, that sucks too. Yes, Ryan is in an unwinnable situation right now. All options suck. The way that Joe presented it makes Ryan say, like, not an option to kill this deal. And killing the deal would ultimately be killing it for Joe. I think about like the frequent commenter Frack and Toaster Leva and I had a bunch of exchanges also about a scene between Tom and Cam in the hospital last season where she was thinking about not selling Mutiny. And then he comes in and he's like, I mean, look, like, yeah, have I been poor? Sure. Like, is money a good thing? Yeah, it's great. But this is your company and you need to do what you need to do. And I think like he was positioning it in a way that sounded it was all true and those were the options and that he was being very honest about the situation and he was leaving it up to her. And I think you could look at that conversation and I think you could say he's laying it out there and letting her make her choice, or you could say, is he manipulating her in some way? And Frack and Toaster Lover and I kind of came down on both, either side of that, but I can see all of those angles. And I see that here too. I feel, because I have seen everything about Joe's relationship with Ryan to this point, I do feel that he really does care about Ryan. And I don't think he's trying to manipulate Ryan, but he is in fact still saying the types of things to manipulate Ryan that he would have said season 1 to somebody else. It's so complicated. And I think it's like, how much does this pass the smell test for Ryan? I think it's passing it enough. I think that he is willing to overlook all of the evidence against Joe here that he seems to have been gathering. And Ryan's a mess too. I think about the fact that Ryan's like, is Joe mad at me? Am I mad at Joe? And then he sits down in front of Joe and he's got those Lee Pace eyes, those Joe eyes. And he's like, oh, he really does care. So I think Ryan is all turned around. And I love that we're able to see all the different viewpoints as they sort of flit across Ryan's brain. in this scene. But yeah, in the end, Joe's like, please just don't go anywhere. I think Joe really feels like the conversation, this was a way to break the seal on the conversation. But I think Ryan hasn't, and Ryan has had nobody to sort of bounce ideas off of for a long time now. And I think maybe they can start getting to a place where Ryan can be a little calmer, and just sort of like have the conversation again from a new perspective. That's what Joe might be hoping for here. My goodness, this scene. Okay, you're a hypocrite and you always have been. Oh, Ryan. Okay, so all right, we're gonna go to a hotel that Donna is in. A hotel worker is wheeling room service into Donna's room. We are at the Hotel St. Moritz in Midtown, New York City. Donna's in a suite, quite a lovely suite. The worker brings in the room service tray. He says, "Madam, where would Madam like the tray?" She follows him in. She points to the bed. He starts setting things up. And as he's doing that, she's grabbing some money. She's in her fancy Hotel St. Moritz robe. And he hands her the bill. She's going to smile. She's going to sign it and tip him. Will there be anything else? He asks. She says, no, thank you. She sends him out. Diane comes in. She says, Donna, how'd you sleep? Donna is going to greet her. She's going to go to the bed, get a room service. She says, horribly, but I didn't mind. The sheets were comfortable. Have you eaten breakfast? She's going to invite Diane to take part in breakfast. Diane says, no, I don't do breakfast when I'm nervous. Donna's like, well, I do. She says, I'm going to be on TV and then my company is going public. A little exposition, a little explaining why she's nervous. It's great. She's eating some eggs. Diane says, you're going to be great. Donna says, you always say that. Diane says, no, you are. You're going to be great. Donna takes a bite of toast. She's like, ah. And Diane laughs. And then we're going to see Donna fixing her hair and her lipstick. She's getting all mic'd up. We're going to see a TV. I don't know if this is a producer or an assistant who's giving her the plan. She says, okay, so you're going to look directly into the camera like it's a person. Linda will be able to see you, the host of the show. Her voice will come into your earpiece. There's going to be a bit of a sound delay. Any questions? Donna shakes her head. The tech folks are working in the hotel suite. Diane's watching it all. She's sitting in the living room area. The producer walks away. She says, 5 away. So we're about to get going. Now we're going to see, I really like that for the remainder of this episode, we're going to see important events and different sets of our main characters experiencing it. So that's what's happening for Donna. Gordon and the girls come downstairs in the Clark house. They're all sleepy because they want to watch Donna. You know, it's could be maybe 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. in California. Gordon says, all right, come on, guys. It's like, I want to go back to bed. He says, I know, but we got to get up and watch mommy. Yeah, Gordon doesn't want to have to do this either. He says, all right, it's her big day. I'll make you guys some breakfast in just a little bit, okay? You guys get on the couch. They sit on the couch. He turns on the TV and sits with them. He says, make some room for daddy. Joni lays against him. We're going to get Linda, the host on TV. She says, welcome back to Financial Watch AM. This morning we have with us Donna Clark, CEO of Mutiny, a trailblazer in the brave new world of online shopping. Haley's attentive. Her mom's on screen. We're going to see Donna looking very sharp on screen. She says, welcome, Donna. Haley nudges Joni. Haley's so proud. She's like, look, it's mommy. And Joni's like, but she is watching too. Linda says, thanks to people like our guest, for the 25 million Americans who own personal computers, Christmas shopping is just a keystroke away. So Donna, Haley's like, she looks so pretty. Linda's saying, a woman who founded a tech company, you're something of an anomaly, aren't you? Donna says, well, actually, Mutiny was founded by my former partner, Cameron Howe. Linda says, I see. And where is he? Donna smiles. She's like, no longer with the company. Linda says, so it was founded by a woman. That can't get anything past Linda. Linda didn't do her research. Nobody did research for Linda. Linda's not great at her job. Linda made a mistake today. Anyway, so it's founded by a woman. Donna smiles. Yes. This is how this one does pass the smell test, according to Boz, it might. Okay, so Haley just sort of piles in on Joni and Gordon, and Gordon puts his arms around both of his girls. And Linda says, so how does this new e-tail phenomenon work? Donna says, it's very simple, really. Most home computers are connected to something called a modem. That's a device which uses, Linda's like, oh dear, it's sounding complicated. Donna laughs. It isn't really. Yeah, I can appreciate Linda comes off as kind of vapid, but I can appreciate that most people, she's trying to make this make sense to her audience too. Donna laughs. It isn't really. Linda's like, bottom line, can I buy my shoes with it? Donna laughs. Yes, absolutely. We're in partnership with several retailers. And Linda's like, finally, something about computers to get excited about. So exactly how would I buy my shoes? Okay. I was trying to soften this for Linda a little bit with the whole make it make sense for your audience bit, but I think Linda, how is she the host of this show, really? Okay, so Gordon is pretty unimpressed by this whole exchange. Donna's face is falling a little that we're now just talking about buying shoes online. Donna says, well, you would log on to Mutiny and from the home. And so now we're going to cut to the other people who are watching this, the Mutiny team. They are in the main workspace. And they're actually getting ready for the opening of the stock. So Carl and Bodie are setting up a feed to a TV where they can all watch the stock ticker and watch the stock open together. And everybody else is just sort of piled into the room and in the center, just sitting with each other. Carl's like, okay, we intercepted the ticker feed from phone lines. Bodie says, going into a bank. Carl says, and then rerouted to the office modem. Boss says, yeah, well, that sounds entirely legal. Carl says, sure. Boss says, okay, for the record, I had no prior knowledge of this plan. They all laugh. And frankly, Boss has to be a little careful with his past. So Boz is going to see Dave with some info on something that he wants to buy or already did buy. He's like, oh, come on, rookie move, son. What are you doing? A sailboat? Don't spend your money before you've made it. But they all have ideas of how they're going to spend this money, or maybe how they've already spent it. So now we start to see information scrolling across the screen. Boz says, okay, look, so the companies debuting today come out first. That's handy because we're not going to have to sit through an alphabetical list where we're going to get Mutiny coming in the middle. Les says, how many are there? Boz says, I don't know. We see markets open DJIA, Dow Jones Industrial Average. It scrolls across the screen. Boz says, oh, here we go. Here we go. Bodie's like, money, money, money. We are now going to see all the different people who are watching this. Donna and Diane are sitting on Donna's bed looking at the computer. We're going to see the screen come up. Mutiny stock, MTNY stock from Friday, 12/19, December 19th, 1986. Diane says, okay, here we go. They breathe together. 8 comes up on the screen. Remember, it was supposed to open at 15. So I don't know a lot about, I don't know a lot. I know nothing about the stock market, but I'm here to tell you, they told me we want 15 and we got 8, and that seems bad. It's sobering for both of them. Diane says, okay, it's a little lower than we expected. Donna's a little worried. And she says, Diane says, just breathe. Donna hits a key. The screen refreshes. It changes to 6. We wanted 15. We started with 8. Now we're at 6. Donna and Diane are very serious. Now we go to the Mutiny office. We see MTNY, 6 scrolls across the screen. Everybody's sighing. It's very heavy energy. They're all looking very serious. Boz sighs, but he holds in a little bit of a curse. Gordon is watching from home, and he then sees the stock change to 5 on his computer. And the girls are out of focus in the background at the kitchen island. Joni's like, can we call mommy yet? He's like, I think we're going to wait a little. And then we're going to see Cam. Cam is packing for Tokyo in a very sparse room. The tree is still up. She looks at Tom, who's in the next room. Tom is refreshing his computer screen, and he looks back at her and he says, do you want to know? Cam considers. She says, just tell me if it's good or bad. And he just sort of shakes his head no. She's like, okay. She turns forward again. He keeps watching her like, this is a sensitive moment. And she's just sitting there. We can't really tell her reaction. She doesn't know how to react. She just sort of nods her head a little, trying to process it. I mean, if you're Cam in this moment, if it opens well, you made money, but Donna was right. If it opens badly, you don't make money, but you were right. So, hey, what's the better scenario there? Okay, we're now going to go back to Donna and Diane sitting on the hotel bed. Donna is just, her mouth is agape. Oh my God, we thought we were going to open at 15. They opened at 5. Diane's trying to reassure her. She says, I know it's a morale blow. I get it, but it doesn't mean that the stock is worthless. It's just not worth what we thought. Could be the pace of our growth. It could be a Commodore issue. They had a horrible quarter, or just a calendar thing. There are all sorts of schools of. Donna is just frozen with her mouth hanging open, and she's starting to sort of tear up a little bit. Donna says, can I have a minute? Diane touches her shoulder. She leaves. The door closes behind Diane. The moment the door has closed behind Diane, Donna just lets go. But it's like almost a hyperventilation. She's like trying to catch her breath. It's like, oh my God, she was so wrong. She fought tooth and nail for this point of view. She says, we need to move on this. We need to open. Everybody backed her up. And this was a disaster for every single person on her team. And was there a middle ground here, folks? I mean, goodness. We're going to hear a knock on Joe's apartment door because this episode hasn't been hard enough. Joe comes out of his bedroom. He just woke up. There's another knock. Joe looks and he sees the blankets, the sheets that he had given to Ryan folded up on the corner of the coffee table. They don't look like they were used. There's no Ryan there. Joe goes to the door. There are a bunch of officers there. The officer says, Mr. McMillan, we need to come in. So now we're circling back to what we saw at the start of the episode. Joe says, what's this about? The officer says, was Ryan Ray in your apartment last night? He says, yeah, but he's gone now. I don't know where he is. The officer says, sir, why don't you sit down? We get a handheld camera up in Joe's face. Joe turns back into the room. He walks a bit further into the apartment, and then he sees the balcony doors open. There's a curtain billowing into the room. In the distance, sirens wail. We know what this means. Joe is devastated. We get an extreme close-up of his face as it's just hitting him. Then we're going to get the camera behind Joe. Like we've done so many times in this episode, his point of view, he's looking at the open balcony door. And you know, the night before when he entered and he saw Ryan was sitting on the couch. The camera was behind him. He was looking at the balcony door. And now Joe's looking at it, it's open and there's no Ryan, and Ryan jumped. And we're going to hear those sirens wailing. And now we're going to get the experience of Ryan's manifesto sort of landing on everybody. We see the "You Are Not Safe" message board. And there's an entry on December 18th, 1986 from Ryan Ray. It's his manifesto. First, we're going to get a close-up of Joe's mouth, the way we saw with Donna's mouth earlier. Close-up of Joe's mouth as he's reading Ryan's manifesto again. Each time we got those close-ups, it was somebody reading something. Joe can't process this. Gordon is in the room with him. He says, look, Joe, how many times are you going to read that? Joe says, he wrote it right here while I was sleeping. Gordon's looking at him. Joe's sitting back. He says, I can't profit from this. Gordon says, no, it was your idea. Okay, I'll wait for you. I'll see if I can stall things. Joe is speaking, but we're looking at Gordon. He says, yeah, you shouldn't want to work with me. The night I stood out there with Ryan. We talked about, he can't even process the conversation that he had with Ryan out on the balcony when he talked about Yerba Buena. Joe is looking at the balcony and he's saying, God, I don't even know what I was saying. Joe's just hurting so badly right now. Gordon's like, look, that's not why. Joe says, Jesus Christ, I was trying to help him. Gordon says, what are you going to do? What are you going to do now? Joe says, I don't know. I can't keep having this conversation though. I'm done. Gordon stands up. He starts to walk away. Joe says, hey, Gordon. Gordon turns back. He says, I'm sorry. He says it sincerely. He says it firmly. Gordon nods and he leaves. I mean, none of this is working out for Gordon. Gordon isn't in a position where he can't do the idea, but he is sick and having a partner was important. So there's that. Joe is backing out of this because Joe morally cannot do this. And I believe that season one Joe, season one Joe, this is a death. Okay. This is a suicide. Season one Joe, though, loses an entire team worth of, well, what was it? 2/3 of a team of people and is still plowing forward with his plan at Cardiff Electric. People's lives and their jobs, he was willing to sacrifice. Something has changed along the way. He is very invested in Ryan, and Ryan just committed suicide. And Ryan, the night before that, didn't know if he was a hero or a hoax, didn't know if Joe had been tricking him this whole time, if he ever planned to bring him in. Ryan is alternating between questioning his character and believing in his character. And this is the most genuine relationship Joe has had, possibly in the entire show, maybe in his entire life. And this was the outcome. He destroyed this kid. Ryan destroyed himself, but here he was. Joe was trying to create something. He was not trying. This was the first time he wasn't trying to destroy something, and the thing got destroyed anyway. And it was a person, and it was Ryan. And that's a lot. It would be a lot to take on. And how much of this is really on him? I mean, Ryan's been spiraling. Ryan's been paranoid. Ryan committed a crime. For Joe, it was misguided. And then he's been spiraling ever since and hasn't had a bouncing board that he could trust. But if you're Joe, how do you not feel like you're taking some of this on board? So, I mean, this is just devastating. And Gordon can see all this. Gordon nods and he leaves. We're now going to see that Ryan's manifesto is on the computer screen at Cam and Tom's. Cam walks by that room and into a room with Tom. Tom's like, are you sure you don't want to postpone the trip to Japan? I don't know if there's a funeral. Cam's shaking her head. She says, no, let's go. She's keeping busy. They're both packing things up. Tom's like, are you sure? Because we can change our flight. Cam smiles, but sort of unconvincingly. She says, I'm fine. Okay, I'm ready to leave this place. She walks into the next room and she stops and she calls back to him. She says, maybe there's some things that they won't have in Japan. He says, yeah. She goes back to the next room to look at him. And she says, yeah, maybe I should just go to the store and just, I don't know, make sure we have everything we need. Tom walks towards her a bit. They're both leaning on the door jambs of open door frames. Tom says, yeah, of course. Good idea. You want me to go with you? She says, no, I'll go. He says, okay. And she leaves. Then we're going to see the guys in the mutiny office. The team is silent. They're reading Ryan's manifesto. We hear Ryan's voice and we're going to go around to the different team members in the room. And then we're going to start going to other characters at moments as we're reading Ryan's manifesto. So we get Ryan's voice reading it. He says, I, Ryan Ray, released the Macmillan utility source code. I acted alone. No one helped me and no one told me to do it. I did this because security is a myth. Contrary to what you might have heard, my friends, you are not safe. Safety is a story. It's something we teach our children so they can sleep at night, but we know it's not real. So, with this first part, it's basically, Joe's the whole way that he was selling the Citadel product. Are you safe? Ryan is giving a definitive answer to this. Like, I believed Joe. I thought maybe, are you safe? Am I? Could we maybe be? Nope. The answer is hard. No. We're going to see Boz in his office as the voiceover continues. Beware, baffled humans. Beware of false prophets who will sell you a fake future. I do wonder to what extent how much these people that we're seeing are connected to the thing that's being said in that moment, because Boz is a false prophet. I don't know that would line up. Then we're going to see Cam at the grocery store as Joni and Haley run up and hug her. So beware of bad teachers. That seems fair. Corrupt leaders and dirty corporations. Beware of cops and robbers, the kind that rob your dreams, but most of all, beware of each other. Now we see Donna at the end of the aisle looking at Cam. And Donna kind of waves with a slight smile. Cam waves, but dubiously. And then Donna just kind of looks down, and Cam looks mildly disgusted. She gets up and she's going to walk the other way after the girls run back to Donna. So for that whole section, beware of each other, because everything's about to change. The world is going to crack wide open. There's something on the horizon, a massive connectivity. The barriers between us will disappear and we're not ready. We'll hurt each other in new ways. We'll sell and be sold. We'll expose our most tender selves only to be mocked and destroyed. He continues, but Ryan is describing the potential of this project that he and Joe had been working on. This is the internet. This is what to be aware of about the internet, basically, now. But it's the early days of that, and he's seeing what this thing can do, and he's warning people about the future. We'll hurt each other in new ways. Gosh. Okay, so now we're going to see the screen switch to Joe standing where Ryan stood when he was trying to meet Joe after surfing, and that shot where we're looking out at the water at the Golden Gate Bridge. So Ryan continues, we'll be so vulnerable and we'll pay the price. We won't be able to pretend that we can protect ourselves anymore. And it's a huge danger, a gigantic risk, but it's worth it. If only we can learn to take care of each other, then this awesome, destructive new connection won't isolate us. It won't leave us in the end so totally alone. And as we wrap this, we watch Joe from behind, looking out onto the water where he watches a surfer, mirroring just the way Ryan was watching him when Ryan first goes to speak with Joe. Gosh, that line of this awesome, destructive new connection won't isolate us. I mean, it's so powerful, and it's the creation and destruction all wrapped up in one that Joe has always represented for us. And then this is an idea that Joe had and was bringing to the world. And so of course, this new technology would do what Joe has stood for this whole time. We hear the sound of the waves over credits. So powerful. R.I.P. Ryan. Look, there's a lot of feedback about Ryan today, so I'm gonna save any other thoughts for that. But music, there was only one song I was able to make out, but I don't know what it was. Blue Dream. I don't know. It's when Cam is typing into the message board to find Ryan. Favorite quotes. I'm going to give you an honorable mention and then my favorite line of possibly the show. Honorable mention from Joe as well. It's like you told me, destruction leads to transformation. You've got plenty of time to reinvent yourself. I mean, in another context, this would be really manipulative. In this context, it might be manipulative, but I don't think that's his intent. But my favorite line is Joe saying to Ryan, I can't work with Joe McMillan anymore. Because Ryan's not wrong. It's like, I'm doing things that you would have done. Okay, he's committing like proper crimes here. But I'm not sure he's wrong. I think Joe has crossed lines before. But Joe's like, yeah, but the thing is, like, I've changed. I don't want that anymore. I'm rejecting that for my future. That my past is not my future. I don't want more of that. And if you are trying to be like the old Joe McMillan, I can't work with you either. So him saying I can't work with Joe McMillan anymore is him saying I have changed and I'm not going back. So good. We have a ton of feedback today, folks. So much feedback, and I'm loving it. And I wanted as much as possible of it to come to be about the Ryan stuff, but there's some other stuff in here too. But obviously, we need to talk about Ryan. So let's start with something that's not about Ryan. Let's start with a comment from Estes One from which is actually a comment from episode 204. That boy, is it coming back today regarding Good and Plenty candy. I remember those. Not good candy. Seems like they were licorice flavored. Is that what they were? Man, I don't like that flavor. So this would explain, yeah. I've never heard anybody be like, ooh, those are the best. Until Cam. This is a really specific interest that she has. Okay, so thank you for that. Now, a comment from A Con regarding from the Annabeth Gish interview. And I felt it was important to bring it in here. So Akon says, something I thought about a lot with respect to Diane and while transitioning to season 4. She, like everybody else who voted, was wrong about the IPO because this was Diane's supposed area of expertise that surprised me. I'm fascinated by the whole idea of expertise in general. Is there such a thing, or are people just making the best guess based on what they already know? It also fascinated me that Donna was left holding the bag as a result. Yeah, I do think that there's a lot of guesswork involved. I think for venture capitalists, for people who are investing in companies, there's certain something of a numbers game. They're not investing in one company, usually trying to put all their eggs in one basket. You invest in a bunch of ideas. And if you have one that hits it really big, that gives you a chance to reinvest in other projects, but make some money, that if the other ones fail, you don't need everything to succeed. If one or two bring in a good return for you, then that can be really profitable. So you're making your best guesses, and there's no way to know exactly what the market will look like or what conditions will look like or what the news cycle will bring that may affect the date that you tried to go public with something. So there are a lot of external factors, and I think people can have expertise and knowledge in that area. I think, unfortunately, in this situation, it was presented in such a binary way in that board meeting where it was like, either we do this right now or we do this 1 or 2 years from now. And both of those options were being presented as having big flaws that could lead to this thing not working. I think that Donna at one point told us that there was a 3-month window. What if they would have taken that 3 months? What if they would have done as much as they could do in 3 months? What if they would have thrown a little extra money? What if Diane had said, we can throw a little bit of extra budget to hire a few new people to do the following 3 things on Cam's list? And then you make that money back, hopefully, when you try to, when you have your opening day and hopefully things go better. I don't know. There are a lot of factors at play, but I think, they guessed and they guessed wrong. Everybody who voted, if you look at this in a results-oriented way, Cam was right. Was Cam right in wanting to do everything 1 or 2 years from now? That could have been wrong too. They have no way to know what that choose your own adventure model looks like. But it's a sobering thing to think that they just put all their eggs in this basket and it did not work. Okay, we've got some different comments from Synthetic Gerbil here. So let's start with 306, a couple different things about 306. It's funny they chose to use the first ending of Mario Brothers. I never beat it until my teens. And that's when I found out your final reward for beating the game is playing it all over again on hard mode. The first NES Legend of Zelda does this exact same thing. You beat the game and it tells you to play it again. The creators could have used the text from the second hard mode ending, which basically is just a sincere reward with a thank you. But instead, they went with the slightly disappointing and perplexing one. This scene probably reflected how a lot of people felt when they beat the game in the 80s, and it's such inside baseball on Cam's and Gordon's reaction. It's so hilarious. So yeah, they spend a whole day trying to beat this game. They beat the level, and then it's like, congrats, try another world. And they're like, no, let's not. And I think there's a couple interesting things about that. First of all, I think there's a reflection there on Cam and Gordon themselves. Like they can't win at life. They just have to play another world. It's like there's this constant new chapter reveal that's happening with each of these characters. And whether they won or they lost in the last chapter, they have to try again in a new world. So there's that. But also, and I think there'll be a comment about this later. Cam is going to sort of model that with her new game as well. Another comment from Synthetic Gerbil. I don't think I ever really gave the significance of that hug Ryan gives Joe much more thought than it's kind of a funny moment, but you're so right in your analysis. Who has actually given Joe such an appreciative platonic hug before? This kind of mentor situation is wholesome to him. It must touch him deeply, and I think it's once again lending to his path at the end of the show. So, which I will not share what that path is at this point, but I do think, like, look, the hug that Synthetic Gerbil is referencing here is after they kind of get the green light from Mitch on the NSFNet deal. It's such a celebratory moment, and Ryan is so ecstatic about it, and he just throws his arms around Joe in such a genuine hug. And man, I mean, there is the word wholesome here is so beautiful. I mean, Joe has been nurturing. I'm trying to find the right word without it being a creepy word. Nurturing Ryan. He has been shaping Ryan. And Ryan, and at this moment in time, Ryan has all of these wonderful feelings about Joe with no thought of negative feelings about Joe. And there's just nobody in Joe's world who he has that with. Like, I think Joe could have had this with both Cam and Gordon in season 1, but he went about it in all the sneakiest ways. And so when approaching this in a more straightforward way with Ryan, it turns out somebody can be a lot more loyal to you and feel really good about you. And so, Joe gets that kind of validation and that kind of reward from Ryan. And I think it just makes him want to continue reinvesting in Ryan. And so to have this outcome with Ryan hits so hard. I want to talk about change in Joe, but there's a comment coming up later that will let me do that more. So I just wanted to take a moment to pause and think about that hug. And I think it has a really big effect on Joe. Who has hugged him with abandon like that? And now that last conversation he had with Ryan didn't want to hug Joe. Okay, Synthetic Gerbil also wanted to share something about 303. We've had a couple comments coming in about the balcony scene from this episode. So I'll try to talk a little bit about it each time. On the balcony, even though there doesn't seem to be much in the way of foreshadowing, and it's more of a light bearded scene, it fills me with so much dread and sadness to see Ryan there having a more intimate conversation with Joe, considering the fate Ryan meets later in that location. I think, yeah, I think especially on a rewatch, you look at something like Ryan being on a balcony the first time, not the first time Ryan sees Joe, but when Ryan goes to see Joe at that party at his apartment, Joe is leaning up against the railing of the balcony, and they have a conversation out there during the party. And then they have a conversation out there again during Yerba Buena. And they have these conversations on the balcony, which now, when you watch it back, especially if this is your first time watching, if you go and watch those episodes back, knowing about this, it's like, there's like more of a dramatic irony there for a rewatcher than there maybe was for a first time watcher. But yeah, that location is it's hard to sit with now. Let's get a comment from Present Hour 24. This was embedded in a longer comment, but I loved, there's a line here that was so good. This is from episode 303 feedback. Present Hour 24 says, seems like Ryan is looking to Joe as a mentor, but Joe is looking at Ryan as if he is the replacement Cameron. Ryan really needed a good HR conversation to find out exactly what exactly he is supposed to be doing there. Joe saying, I am the product is the most narcissistic moment for Joe. So this idea, Ryan going to pitch to Joe in his office, this idea of Joe thinking of Ryan as a replacement Cameron. I think you could also make an argument there are times he thinks of him as a replacement Gordon. And in this episode, he jokes about that in a way that makes Gordon uncomfortable, and he's trying to make him uncomfortable as a joke. But I do think that there are times it's like he could be a replacement Cameron or a replacement Gordon, maybe. Okay. Some thoughts from Amelia Flowers. Let's start with a comment from episode 105. You mentioned how Joe went into sales pitch mode with his dad. Sales pitch mode like his dad. Also, in season 1, when Joe goes to see his dad, Joe Sr. shouts, sit down. If you remember that scene. Then in season 3, that echoes when Joe shouts at Gordon to sit down and tell him about his sickness. You can never escape things we learned in childhood. Good catch, Amelia. Nice. Because we don't get a lot of interactions between Joe and his dad. There's more of a kind of a looming nature of that over the show, but we do get, 105 where Joe actually talks, or later than this, Joe talks to his dad, and we get Joe's dad saying, sit down. And here it's echoed later. But with such a different feeling about it, it's just crushing when Joe learns about Gordon's illness. Now, Amelia also has some things to say about 305. Speaking of reframing an event from other points of view, when Joe and Ryan discuss San Francisco/Yerba Buena, it struck me on this rewatch that when Joe is looking out on the city, having had the news that he doesn't have HIV, Ryan's words are replaying in his head, that he's been given a second chance and can start over. That was reinforced by him not caring what the board thought and going ahead with the NSFNet idea. We've seen Joe be single-minded and do what he wants throughout the show, but it struck me as if now he thinks the universe is on his side and showing him the way forward. The relationship he has with Ryan is more nurturing, and he's somehow softer, patient, and more guiding. And Ryan is more receptive in a way that Cam was not. It's the first time we've seen that side of him. Cam and Gordon were more able to challenge and have their ideas, and it felt more equal. Joe had to use some moves rather than be open to get them on side. I think crucial differences were Joe, like Cam, had never truly trusted and worked alone, and had the must win at all costs mentality drilled into him from his father. Season 3, Joe is changing after Sarah believing in him, and he liked how that felt, and then was bereft when she left and called him out. Joe has another chance. Here's puppy dog Ryan believing in him, and Joe doesn't want to let him down. Joe likes the feeling of trust that Ryan has in him. Yeah. I think that idea that, Ryan is the one who tells Joe what the meaning of Yerba Buena is. Joe's like, this is a city that keeps being burned to the ground. And Ryan's like, that's what's so great about it. There's always a possibility to reinvent yourself. In other words, is what he was saying. And he's gotten this far with Joe and no longer believes that anymore. He would rather end it all. He got to a place that he preferred to end it all than to see what that reinvention looked like for himself. It's like taking that conversation that perhaps gave hope to Joe and saying, never mind. Just kidding. That's not a thing. Man, these Ryan takes are good. Oh gosh. Now from Frack and Toaster Lover, who we're going to get a little Frack and Toaster Lover section here because Frack and Toaster Lover has been firing on all cylinders. Holy moly. Have we got some feedback that's been amazing on, I think Frack and Toaster Lover has been catching up on a lot of episodes. So I've got a bunch in here. Let's start with some Ryan stuff. From 301, Ryan is a great character and brings completely new energy to the show. Unlike all the extroverted comic relief coders, he is clearly neurodivergent and incredibly intense. Up to that point, the closest to a really socially inept character was season 1 Gordon and Cameron up to a point, but Ryan is on a whole new level. His pitch was indeed funny to Cam and Donna, but also upsetting to me because he's brilliant, but also terrible at getting his ideas across and terrible with people. And Cameron and Donna were handling him so badly and not even trying to be understanding. Cameron tried to fix it with a raise, but that didn't help after how dismissive she was of him at the pitch meeting. She's not the greatest with dealing with people either, after all, maybe particularly so with people who have some of her own traits in an exaggerated way. From the first moment I saw Ryan, and especially in the last scene where he is watching Joe give a speech, I felt something ominous, like Ryan was potential trouble, maybe even a potential tragedy. Is Joe a danger to Ryan? Is Ryan a danger to Joe? Is it both? They are both intense and obsessive about ideas and about people who inspire them, but they are also opposites in how incredibly charismatic and persuasive Joe is, which is something Ryan completely lacks. Maybe that's why Joe is the one person he is impressed and confused by and irresistibly drawn to. I don't even know that there's anything I could say to this. It's so good. Is Joe a danger to Ryan? Is Ryan a danger to Joe? Is it both? I mean, the question, let's all answer the question. If you're listening to this now, jump into the comments, answer this question. Who's a danger to who here? And this was all about security, wasn't it? Yeah. 302. Frack and Toaster Love wants to add some more things here. I love the way this episode revolves around a sort of friendship triangle of Joe, Gordon, and Ryan. Gordon might have wanted Ryan to be his new Joe, but Ryan certainly wanted to be Joe's Gordon instead. Joe and Gordon both feel betrayed by each other, and Ryan is caught in between and ultimately used by Joe to hurt Gordon. But does he only hire Ryan because of that? Or does he also see some potential in him? Or maybe he even feels a bond with another intense visionary outcast. Your analysis of the Joe Ryan scene is great. Joe probably got disappointed by Ryan not being able to offer him any new ideas. However, when Ryan said something big is coming, that's the same thing Joe himself told Nathan in 201. And I think he also said it later to Jacob. Good catch, Frack and Toaster Lover, that's come up a couple times. So it's interesting because now that I'm saying that, I'm thinking about the fact that at the end of season 1, when Joe goes to Cam's doorstep and she says, I thought I loved you, but really you were just echoing my own ideas back to me. I wonder, now that you say this about Joe having said those very words to Nathan and maybe to Jacob, maybe Ryan is echoing Joe's thoughts back to him, and that's something that attracts him there. I think it goes deeper than that with Ryan after a while. But what makes him what makes him pay attention in that meeting, that first meeting with Ryan? I also love the fact that that Frack and Toaster Lover just called this a friendship triangle. So good. Okay. Here's a lengthy comment about 207. We've got a couple of lengthy comments coming up from Frack and Toaster Lover. And I really wanted to dig into this one to really think about how Joe is or is not changing. And it may seem like, why are you going back to season 2 to look at this? But I think we need to keep exploring this stuff, because is he or is he not changing even now? Okay, I think Joe is changing throughout the show, and it starts in season 1, especially after Comdex, when Cameron's words and her rejection and condemnation really get to him, together with his own dissatisfaction that he betrayed not just Cameron, but also his own vision for business practicality or survival on the market. Cameron voiced the things he already felt about himself. Burning the suit and the giant shipment was his expression of his hatred and rejection of the season 1 Joe persona. He wanted to turn the page and start completely fresh. In season 2, Joe is making a conscious effort to be a good guy. I don't believe that he thought of Sarah as a mark. I think he thinks he really loves her and wants to be in a relationship with her, as she makes him feel accepted. And he wants to patch up the relationships with Cameron and Gordon. He wants Cameron to forgive him, and he still has his fascination with innovative, creative work in the computer industry, and his mind immediately starts seeing all the possibilities for the future, and his instinct is to get involved. The problem is that Joe doesn't know at this point how to genuinely change and do better, even though he wants to. He keeps meddling, deceiving, and manipulating whenever he runs into an obstacle, like Cameron and Donna's hostility and distrust, because that's the only way he knows how to operate. He's learned it from his dad. He needs a lot of time to unlearn it. He wants connection with people, but he still doesn't know how to treat them as equals. We see him catching himself in this episode when he says he will get out of the way. But not only is he backsliding a lot, I think of season 2 as a big detour for Joe on his search for his own identity. The Joe we see with Sarah doesn't feel like the real Joe. He is made her the criterion of what he should be like, and tries to be the good guy by trying to be what he thinks she wants. But it's all very shallow. These changes are cosmetic. When Sarah told him not to meddle in other people's companies, he heard and remembered. But was that enough to make him stop? No, he was still enthusiastically planning Mutiny's future. The turning point was when he learned that Jacob really wasn't going to let Mutiny have any creative freedom, that Jacob has been seeing it all as a big scam against Mutiny. Jacob even seems to assume that Joe had been scamming them. So I had some thoughts as well about where the turn happens for Joe in season 2, and we might land in different places for that, but I love this take of it. And I think it makes me now want to extend this and say, okay, so where are we with season 3 Joe? Season 1 Joe, he's being manipulative. He seems to be getting what he wants until he really isn't anymore, and he loses Cam. Season 2, he's trying to be a better guy maybe, but he doesn't know how. He's backsliding a lot. I can totally agree with this. And he's failing. But because he keeps backsliding, and because things look a certain way, again, it's the Joe Rorschach test. If you're Cam and Donna, it looks like, oh, you were trying to do this the whole time. And there's nothing Joe can really say that says like, but I wasn't. I was trying to do the right thing. And then, what was happening with Sarah? Was she a mark? Was she not a mark? Was Jacob a mark? Was he not a mark? Was it just that he wanted to be in a relationship with her and he couldn't handle it? There he is playing tank battle games with Cam late at night after getting engaged with Sarah. I mean, there's a lot of, he wants to be better, but I don't know that he is accepted how much of a challenge that's going to be for him, or how far he actually is from changing. Season 3. I believe that Joe changes in this series. I believe that who you see in season 1 and who you will see at the end of season 4 are not the same Joe. But I've been wondering throughout this rewatch, when does change happen? And what does it mean to have changed? Where in the change process can we say that change has actually occurred? Before I started this rewatch, and I'm keeping this spoiler free for those who are brand new to the show. Before I started this rewatch, I would have said that Ryan's suicide is a mile marker, is a moment for Joe where there is no turning back. Where does he go from here? I don't know, and I will not tell you. But I do know, but I won't tell you. But like, even if this is a first watch for you, this is devastating. This relationship has felt a little different from Joe's perspective. And now it is destroyed in the worst possible way. And so something has to shift here. And I feel that this is a moment of clear, like, this is a mile marker. This is a benchmark where change happens for me. Has to be. No other choice, right? But if you're Ryan, did Joe really change? Hard to say. You know, if you're any number of other characters looking at Joe, do you think Joe changed? If you're Ken, do you think Joe has changed at any point in season 3? Like, if he had good intentions but couldn't execute in season 2, is that the same thing here? It doesn't feel exactly the same, but it's the same result, right? He thought he was trying to change, but the world was conspiring against him. Circumstances were conspiring against him. Ryan was trying to make things happen that went against it. Ryan was trying to become Joe. Like, it's so in the end, and here we are, creation and destruction all over again. So in the end, has Joe changed to this point? I feel instinctively like there's something different. But when I look on paper at the results of this, I can see how people from other characters' points of view would say, nope, same Joe. And you have to really like go with like looking in his eyes and seeing something different if you're going to spot something different. We have been on this ride with him. And so maybe we can see some different intentions along the way from even what we saw in season 2. But on paper, show me the different results, there's so much in this. Frack and Toaster Lovers killing it with the comments, and we need to hear from you. We need you all the way in. But that's not the last that we're hearing from Frack and Toaster Lover, because there's some thoughts here about 303 that I wanted to bring in. The party scene always evoked The Great Gatsby to me, the party in Joe's apartment, with Joe being very Gatsby-like and Ryan a star-stricken Nick Carraway. Absolute Beginners is one of my favorite uses of a song in this show, a perfect choice for many reasons. And I've also always seen how it could be a Joe or Cam song, and also how it could be Ryan's song and about his relationship with Joe. Does this mean there are romantic undertones here? I don't see them from Joe's side. But Ryan's fascination with Joe feels very ambiguous. It's the kind of thing that people could call hero worship or man crush, but that also looks like being in love. It's the kind of feeling where you aren't sure, do I want to be with this person or do I want to be them? Which can lead to sexual confusion. From what I've seen, there's been a lot of speculation in the fandom about Ryan's sexuality, and most people see him as queer, but I don't think there's consensus on the specifics. I'm leaning towards him being asexual, but biromantic or homoromantic. I don't see him showing sexual interest in Joe or anyone, but asexual people can certainly fall in love and have romantic desires. The show subtly plays with it as we get a couple of scenes where we specifically see Ryan watching Joe interact with people who were presumably his current or former flings, and it's unclear what he's thinking. Ultimately, I think Ryan probably has no idea himself. He might never have confronted these issues, and he seems like a real absolute beginner when it comes to human relationships. This is so interesting because, yeah, I was looking through those lyrics and thinking, whoa, these lyrics kind of take you down that road. But I've always seen Ryan as an asexual character. And I love the point of view here. It's really interesting. I have no idea what people like previously in other parts of the Halt and Catch Fire community have discussed in terms of Ryan's sexuality. It's interesting to me that so many people see him as a queer character. Because I was reading that, I was like, I don't know though, where do you get that from? But yes, because there is a scene, even in that party, where Joe's like, you know what, I have to go talk to somebody for a moment. And Joe goes over and talks to a blonde woman, and Ryan's watching that. We watch Ryan watch that. So yeah, why do you have a scene like that in there unless you're meant to put something onto it, which I don't think I did at the time, but Sure. Okay. Uh, I can get on board with that. I mean, I think I'm still thinking of him as asexual, but I see your points. Good points raised. And I'd love to know what other scenes people are thinking of where it kind of lended to that. Okay. It's time. It's time for our feedback from Evan the Stray. Let's also look at the absolute beginner scene first before we look at this episode. So from 303, Evan says, Bowie's absolute beginner's lyrics are definitely something I've never considered before in the context of Ryan and Joe, unless I totally misunderstood. If so, they would seem to come from Ryan's perspective or voice. I can almost talk myself into believing the lyrics can be taken as completely platonic, but a few lines in the song kind of derail that. The brotherly, friendly, non-romantic love is definitely plausible at this point, though. I'll have to keep this song's lyrics in mind as the episodes unfold. Since Ryan's character was stated as neurodivergent, maybe part of that is asexuality, too. I'm seeing zero romantic interest at this point from Joe, so regardless of Ryan's motivations, it's seemingly one-sided. To your point, there are certainly shades of Cameron and Gordon in Ryan's character. Okay, so we're kind of like there seems to be some amount of agreement there between Evan the Stray and Frack and Toaster Lava. Nicely done, folks. But if you disagree, jump in and tell us. All right, Evan the Stray has some thoughts about this episode to share. December 19th, 1986, Joe is being questioned by the police. We see yellow lights behind Joe. Yellow is associated with the emotion of fear. So what is its purpose here? Really interesting. I didn't spot that. And in fact, I made a big deal about talking about Ryan walking into the light when he walked out of his house. Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting. If you're seeing that, it's there. And light is certainly coming into play in some very specific ways in this episode. Emotion of fear, huh? Good to know. The back of Joe's head and the back of Ryan's head is captured. Is it to symbolize they're of a similar mind 4 months ago? Ryan's head is shown centered between two door jambs. This could represent a choice needs to be made by him and or he's feeling pressured. I love that you pinpointed this specific thing because we are going to see it used quite a lot in this episode where we're going to see the back of a character's head. We see it with Cam, we see it with Donna. And so for me, that felt like a point of view choice, but I love that you're really looking at the very specific cut between the back of Joe's head and the back of Ryan's head here and saying, you know, is it that they're of a similar mind 4 months ago? It's interesting, kind of going back in time there. Joe's quite nervous and Gordon feels secure in Joe's honesty after a cursory question. It's actually kind of remarkable that Gordon is able to have Joe look him in the eye and feel confident that he's not trying to pull the wool over his eyes. I'm thinking that's in relation to the, did you do this sort of a thing? I think there's something about this, like all of the characters, like I think about Boz saying to Cam way back when, like, you're the person I trust to be able to tell if Joe's telling the truth or not. I think that characters now are they've been honing their radar with Joe, the is Joe lying radar. And it's all about being in front of him and looking him dead in the eyes and saying, is this man telling me the truth? And Gordon seems to think that he's got a bit of that going here. He looks Joe in the eye and he feels comfortable that Joe is telling the truth. And I don't know, if you're Joe, does that make you feel good that you're getting people's confidence like that, or that you didn't have their confidence and they feel like they need to run this test on you? Feds, the CFAA, Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, on October 16th, 1986, became public law and was used to help satisfy the growing need for laws dealing with computer crimes, where mail-in wire fraud laws were falling short for prosecutors. So so glad that you pointed this out with the date, because obviously I shared a lot about this act in the beginning of this podcast hours and hours ago, but October 16th, 1986. So this was just put out there, right? Like, no wonder Ryan was meant to be a figure of this, an example of this. Flash to 4 months earlier, Ryan encounters a packet sniffer employed by an investigator for the first time, it sounds. It seems like he should know what one of these does if he really is that good. Yeah. I don't know enough about the tech to know how new this was, but it does seem that way, doesn't it? October 31st, 1986, Donna is experiencing IPO growing pains. Pace of Mutiny's growth has slowed somewhat. Probably would have been better to say Mutiny's growth pace is leveling. The constraints of what's allowed to be said in informal equities briefings is cause for frustration, most obviously by Donna and a little by Boz. Diane is chill. Donna is feeling the absence of Cam and experiencing what it's like not having her partner there, whether she's aware of it not just yet. That's interesting to point out. You know, we've seen a number of times since Donna and Cam started partnering with each other that we see them do pitches together and they're completing each other's sentences and handing off to each other, and it's practiced. This Donna works out her material up against Diane and Boz situation does not seem to flow as well. I like that you raised that, Evan. Good spot. Some lines here that I think Evan liked. Boz, so they read the prospectus. That's why we're doing this whole thing. Donna says nobody wanted it. It just what happened. Okay. Evan has a point of view on this. Cam wakes up and we hear either tinnitus, anxiety ringing in her ears, or maybe she hears nothing unusual and it's just for us. Life cereal is delicious. She sees and follows a wasp or hornet to its nest. I think it's a wasp. I had to look it up. Is it meant to show that despite her independence, she should be working as part of a team? Yeah, a lot of similar things that we spotted here. That ringing, yeah, I mean, maybe the anxiety of it, I don't know, but it's definitely a ringing sound. And the wasp slash hornet, but I'm going with wasp, but if you know definitively what was it, a wasp, was it a hornet? Probably wasn't a yellow jacket, but could have been, right? I don't know. I think yellow jackets go underground. These are the things that I learned when I was doing research. If I'm wrong about it being a wasp, go ahead and tell me. So yeah, there's that. Okay. Independence, should she be working as part of a team? I don't know. Have we seen Cam work well within a team context? Really? Like, is that like she worked well with Donna sometimes, but she didn't. She works sort of well with Mutiny sometimes. She works pretty well with Tom when she wants to. I don't know. Is the learning here that she should be working on her own or trying to learn skills to work with a team? Ryan thinks he's 20 times better than Gordon. Gordon might know what a packet sniffer is, though, Ryan. Oh, burn. Too soon. Okay, Evan Ryan just passed. So please. Let's be respectful. But that was a good that was good. I like that. Cameron is watching what appears to be Evil Dead in this episode. She's also dispensing Sambuca flavored candy. Is that what it is? So Sambuca is licorice flavor? Things not to do, to drink or eat. Thank you for helping me make this list, everybody. Okay, she's also dispensing Sambuca flavored candy, which is the candy you buy for trick-or-treaters when you really don't want to be giving out candy and you hope they spread the news to decrease visits, but want to look like you're not a Halloween party pooper. But still, good and plenty, Cameron. I bet whiskey drinkers like it. Is whiskey also the same flavor? I'm adding to this list of things that I should never try to drink or eat. Joe comes to Cameron hat in hand to help him find Ryan. The phrase off the grid apparently has etymology dating back to the 1960s, but you don't have to take my word for it. Little LeVar Burton Reading Rainbow reference. Really? That wasn't used before 1960s? Well, that's interesting. Fun fact. When Joe tells Cameron he's working with Gordon now, her expressiveness on her face, all wide-eyed, it's so satisfying. Little did Cameron know that her advocating for Gordon receiving credit for tabula rasa from Joe is what ended up preserving Joe's NSFNet project. Joe leaves out the details of how he and Gordon really joined forces again. But Would that be really rubbing salt in any wound for her? I think she feels good about Gordon. I think she feels, I don't know, I think she's coming around somehow on Joe. I think she's got some sort of an understanding here. Um, she's telling Joe to patch things up with Gordon. I think this is an outcome of that. I don't know how I don't know that if you're Joe, you want to get into that conversation when the point of this is to make sure Cam pursues this thing with Ryan. Um, and you also know, if you're Joe, that Cam's in a bit of a state as relates to the fact that she was just ousted from Mutiny. So hearing about a new partnership might not make her feel great. I don't know that he can't tell her, but I don't think now's the time. Joe says he's lucky, Tom. And I'm pretty confident Joe has never not known Tom's name, especially after visiting his mother in season 2. Good point. However, Cameron still cannot say Tom in front of Joe. She says she's making him miserable. Joe and Cam examine the wasp's nest. It's intricate, fragile, and dead. Maybe they're a little sad knowing that it was once alive. It was once lively, complicated, dangerous, and could be painful. It's not unlike their previous relationship. Joe says, scary. He was scared in that relationship. Cam said she had to zap it because she didn't want those little leaders getting stung. For Cam to focus on Mutiny completely, perhaps she felt she had to end it with Joe, aside from her feelings of betrayal at Comdex. She wasn't going to fail the coders who put their trust in her. She couldn't let them get hurt, stung due to her personal carelessness. Holy moly, commenters. Across the board, you guys are, all of you, men and women, all non-binary, whoever's commenting here. Wow. Wasp's nest being a metaphor of Cam and Joe's relationship. Only on this podcast, man. Okay, good stuff. And I like your point. Like, Joe can never say Tom's name, but surely he knows his name. He went to see his mom. He's had more than one conversation with that man. Oh, him. And Boz said the kid's in love, and that's how Joe went to find Tom. So of course him. Playing coy. All right. Cam is curious with Joe as he's leaving the house, appearing to follow him with her eyes as he traverses the sidewalk. As the camera capturing Cam begins to drift behind a door jamb, the next thing we immediately see is a black Halloween-themed scaredy cat at the Clark residence. Was Cam also scared of the relationship with Joe? Maybe curiosity will kill the cat. And is the cat Tom and Cam's relationship? Maybe it's just one of Halloween decorations and this is just too much of a stretch. I'm reading this in real time for the first time with all of you. I mean, Evan, like, maybe symbolism everywhere. I mean, I think for sure Halloween is such a perfect holiday. It's funny because we get more than one holiday happening around this episode, but I think Halloween is extremely well placed. I think screaming happening on TV behind the Joe and Cameron conversation. Like, I just think that it's very, very well placed. And I do think the fact that we get all the way up to right before, let's say, Christmas, really allows us to feel more of the Joe and Gordon family connection as well later. Okay. Gordon's, yep, I miss you too, to Donna feels like the least sincere thing ever, but it actually reminds me of the phone call from her when he's home alone with the girls in season 1, fixing the sink and cutting his hand in the process, resulting in him just dropping the phone. All this shortly following the lasagna incident. New phrase for the Halt and Catch Fire lexicon. God, that makes me so mad every time. I feel bad for Donna, though she did make her bed, the mutiny of Cam, and now she has to sleep in it, but not a sleeping bag in a tent because that's just cruel. Yeah. I mean, Gordon does not look upon her with love. Tom looks upon Cam with love. We've seen it happen in this episode, but Gordon does not look at Donna that way in this episode. And frankly, none of her family wants to spend any amount of time talking to her. Donna spends a lot of time alone in this episode and is maybe, I don't know. I don't want to say the most alone of any character. There's a lot of loneliness among the characters in this episode. December 18th, 1986, when Gordon asked Joe if he and Ryan were ever partners. I love how Joe just lets Gordon flounder into being more direct. Joe's facial expression in the first volley of, you knows, clearly shows he's playing with him. Joe says Gordon should take NSFNet forward. Gordon says he can't because he's sick. Joe wants to know more. You can see a smidge of fear and certainly concern on his face. Joe appears to be successful in getting Gordon to sit down and spill the beans about his CTE, chronic toxic encephalopathy. Though we don't hear that conversation, and I would have liked to hear it. That's interesting, Evan. I don't feel like I needed to. But I appreciate that you did. I mean, I think we do get to hear Gordon say some details to Cam. So we get to hear a bit of that reveal. It doesn't go super in depth. But I think with Joe, I think this reaction that we get from Joe is what I needed to see from this scene. So, and you know, as I'm assuming the writers thought, do we need to tell the audience this again? Because maybe they did, because if somebody's just tuning in, we're not getting constant reminders of this. But I don't know. I did like this choice, but I appreciate that you wanted more. Cameron, who's wearing a Plimsoll's shirt, Plimsoll's being prominently featured in Valley Girl, and the pic from that movie was on the Mutiny Fridge in Texas. What? Found Ryan at a university sleeping on the couch. He's generally distrusting, a little agitated, and paranoid. She informs and assures him Joe just wants to help out. I've been wondering whether Ryan may have bipolar disorder. He's been feeling like it a little in the last 2 episodes. Yeah. Could be. I've seen that play out with a couple of symptoms that I'm recognizing here, but I also think, you know, his paranoia is to a degree justified. Like situationally, it makes sense for him to be paranoid, especially knowing how much time has elapsed where he's been hiding. And knowing who he can actually trust, given that he's committed a crime and the FBI is after him. And I would assume that anybody who's been hosting him or knows where he is, if they don't share that information, would be aiding and abetting. So I think that his, like, the state that we see him in situationally makes a ton of sense, regardless of whether or not there's any sort of mental disorder or illness involved here. So there's that. Gordon found a great new sitter, really flexible, too much inflection there. Ooh, Gordon. I'll just imagine her being a post-grad student to cope. I think it's Joe. But man, Evan, okay, like I see where you're going, but that would be disturbing. But I think it's Joe. The IPO is expected at $15, which would make Cameron a millionaire. Oh. So around 200,000 shares would be needed to be publicly offered at a minimum. Okay, well, that certainly puts that into context. I didn't run the numbers on this, nor would I have known how to do that. Okay, Space Bike Chronicles isn't wowing me, but the Five Senses creativity is interesting. Did she pick a futuristic motorcycle of sorts relating to her dad's bike she didn't acquire in Texas? Seems likely. Well, that's a really good spot. Yeah, I like that. I mean, I think the Five Senses is her working out the version of her she wants to be. Like, this is her avatar for the future Cam that she wants. And that she has the bike that she never did get. Good stuff. Donna's statement in her interview that most computers are connected to a modem doesn't seem to make sense. Even by 1997, only 18% of homes with computers had internet access, and not quite 37% of households even had computers, according to infoplease.com. Okay, good details. Where they did their market research, I don't know, when they were doing this pitch. The mutiny stock opens at $8 and descends to $5. Donna appears to experience the onset of an anxiety attack. I'm wondering how strong Friday, December 19th, 1986 would have been for an IPO. 3 business days before Christmas Eve doesn't seem ideal. Yeah, I don't know. I'm wondering. I don't know if that's a good time to open. I mean, I feel like in the business world, I feel like people are going on vacation, but I don't know in or they're going on holiday, but I think in stocks, I'm not sure what that does for the market. Joe's open balcony door and curtain gently blowing in the breeze feels tranquil, even as Joe puts the clues together about what becomes of Ryan. Yeah, in another context, it would be serene. But in this, ominous, disturbing. I get the and I also think it's so important that we've had these moments of like sort of Ryan. We had the moment of Ryan looking at the window. We've had all these times where Joe was standing by windows in this episode. We never get away from windows in this episode. I get the impression Joe feels responsible for it all and he cannot continue onward. He remembers what he said to Ryan on his balcony. This city, I can't decide if it's beautiful or horrifying. My mom came out here. She died here. Nothing lasts in this place. So good that you brought those lines back in here. And here, if we take it so literally, it's like this balcony, and that's, Ryan came out here. He died here. Nothing lasts in that place either. There's symbolism with Cam on one side of the door jamb and Tom on the other, but what is it that's between them, separating them? Is it Cam's feelings for Joe? Is it not wanting to go to Japan because Tom will be her entire support system? Is it the differences between each other? I'm guessing it's a combination of all of the above, though she seems to be making up a reason to get out of the house. Interesting. Yeah, there's a room between them. There's a wall between them. She comes back into the room though, and they're now in an open area. Yeah. Cam's initial reaction when Tom says, do you want to move to Tokyo? She's like, hard yes. I felt that she did want to move. I feel like Cam's not looking for reasons to get out of going to Tokyo. I feel like her whole world went up in smoke. I think that she doesn't work with Mutiny anymore. I'm guessing she doesn't even see that team anymore. She can't be in the room with Donna. Stuff with Diane went sideways because of it. Not that she had a strong relationship there. Gordon is married to Donna. So even though he did her the greatest kindness by giving her a heads up, he voted against her, which I think she would have some grace for, but he's married to Donna. So how do you meet up with Gordon? Boz, she hasn't seen Boz. So where did they sit? They made up and then he voted against her. Where do they sit? Joe, there's not really an active relationship there. Who else does she have? She has Tom. She worked pretty hard to get Tom back so she'd have Tom. Why not start over in a new place? I mean, she tried to start over, and she was the first one to suggest moving to California. She wanted to start over there. Maybe it's time to disappear, to go off the grid, to go to Tokyo. I think that she's looking for reasons to start over in a new place. Tokyo is a great idea, I think. And it's just well timed. And I think she's receptive. I don't see this as a moment of distance. I see that Tom is the only person she's got, and she wants to start over somewhere new. But yes, we're having conversations with them in separate rooms. So there's that. And is there something underneath that relationship? I certainly felt that way when they were talking about having gotten married to begin with and getting engaged. So yeah, it's an interesting relationship, isn't it? Everyone sees Ryan's beautiful and terrible message about the fallacy of safety and the risks of a more connected society. It's a nice touch by the Halt and Catch Fire team to show that Ryan saw 30 years into the future of what an internet connected society would face. What a powerful manifesto. you know? And if you're Manish Dayal, you get to read those words and have that connected with your character. Ah, what a juicy voiceover. Okay, let's see. Cameron and Donna see each other at the grocery store while Donna looks compassionate and maybe even regretful. Cam looks disgusted after the girls turn away. Yeah, I agree. That's totally what I saw in her face. Joe returns, and frankly, Donna knows the IPO failed. So Cam was right. Well, Donna was wrong. Cam was right. We can't prove it. But Donna was definitely wrong. Had they waited a year or two, Cam might have been wrong too. But there's that. Donna can't get away from that fact either as she looks at Donna and she looks at Cam in the grocery store. Joe returns to the beach by the Golden Gate Bridge opposite the shoreline from the Presidio Trust. This is where he first met Ryan. The camera's focuses on the back of Joe and performs a dolly zoom. Yeah. Just a quick comment. I believe this might have been from the Jeff Freilich interview, but I think they shot everything they shot in San Francisco. They shot in like one trip to San Francisco in like a week or a weekend or a few days. And so, any of these shots, anything that you're seeing that was just definitively placed in San Francisco that doesn't look like B-roll. I guess they just kind of went in and got all that footage. So if I think about that, if I think that this stuff with the Golden Gate Bridge was stuff that they shot, because I believe Lee Pace went on that trip, that probably would mean that Manish Dayal went on that trip. So it would be weird to think that you could potentially be shooting in like sequentially, like Ryan having that conversation with Joe, who just was surfing, to like Joe looking out at the water at a surfer. And the tones of that are so wildly different, but you need to get like all that stuff while you're at that location. I know, interesting. All right, quote time. Stone quote crazy, says Evan. The street, first quote. Oh, well, it's a very tall child dressed as Joe McMillan. From Cam. Glad you put that in there. I also like the follow-up line where he's like, Batman was taken or whatever. Okay, the next one is the law. This one is a Tom quote. Well, look at you waiting for me at the front door. We're one apron away from a lifelong fantasy. Evan has a question. What percentage of truth is in that joke? Yeah, true. I think a lot of it. Rainy afternoon quote. From Boz. Oh, please, it sounds like you're eulogizing the family dog. A typhoon, quote, from Donna. Oh, so I should say that she's a temperamental narcissist with self-destructive tendencies who doesn't work well with others, or who doesn't work with others. I mean, Donna's heated. Al Capone, quote, from Joe. Look at us, two unemployed CEOs both ousted from our companies. Mine's toast and yours is going public. And the last one from Joe, who's quoting Ryan. This one's the sirens. Okay. It's like you told me, destruction leads to transformation. Nevin asks, but is that transformation beautiful, grotesque, or just different? Yeah. Oh my goodness. What an episode. Season 3 is just one episode. The hits just keep on coming with this season. And I'm so glad there was a lot of really rich stuff to talk about with Ryan, because we had a character die, a character that I have grown to love very much, and I feel horrible, but I think Ryan Ryan is interesting because of Ryan, and Ryan is interesting because of what we learn about Joe, and we just get so much from Ryan being in the show. And I even from the very first time I saw Ryan in the very first watch, I was like, ooh, what's happening with this character? But I wanted to watch. And Ryan got a seat on the train, but he couldn't. He just got flung off of it, didn't he? And he just could not move at the speed that these other characters have been moving at. He was not cut out for this world. He was very had so much book smarts, and he just did not know how to speak to people or protect himself. And he has met a very untimely end. So I just, uh, it's so sad to think that he was a character earlier in this season who thought that second chances are possible, and his city that he lived in was proof of it. And he, by the end of his time on the show, before he kills himself, decides that he was wrong about that and second chances aren't a thing. um I'm so sad for him. And thank you all for unpacking this with me. And who knows, maybe some more thoughts come out of this podcast that you want to unpack, because I think this is a really fun foundational moment in figuring out how, I mean, there have been foundational moments before. It's another foundation. It's a benchmark. It's a milestone. It's something that we build upon. There's a before and an after, I think, for so many of the characters because of how big something like this is. So thank you all for joining me with this. And next time we'll talk about 309. That one's a fun one. I'm looking forward to that one. And until then, go out there and watch Halt and Catch Fire, everyone. Bye.